Thank you all very much for joining us. This is a joint meeting of the Region 1 and Region 3 SAC. And we wanted to bring you two together because we have some speakers tonight who are going to give kind of a joint presentation that's relevant to all parts of the North County area. So we thought it would make sense to bring you two to put the two groups together to do this. The very first thing that we need to do tonight, though, is a very quick piece of housekeeping. Region 1 typically does this, approves the agenda for the evening. Region 3, it's something that we're going to need to start to do as well. So let me point to the Region 1 chair, and if you would call a vote on approving the agenda.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Karen Turbani. I'm Region 1 Chair. If I can get Region 1, I'd like to make a motion to approve the evening's agenda. Second. I need a motion first. Doing it, but and a second, please. Thank you.
Very good. And Jason, would you mind?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. If anyone opposed, all in favor? Aye. So it was moving so quickly. I'm sorry.
Thank you. And Jason, would you mind doing the same for Region 3?
Yes, Jason Morgan, Region 3. So if we can have a motion to approve the agenda for the meeting for someone from Region 3.
Motion.
It's been motioned and properly seconded. All those that approve?
Aye.
The nays have the nays have the same right? Hearing none.
Very good. Thank you. And that's it for the housekeeping. Now I will turn it over to our speakers. If you would like to come up and introduce yourselves. And Karen, I believe that your presentation is first, correct? Yep. Is that correct? Okay. All right.
Where would you like, just standing up here? Are you gonna take care of it?
Yeah, just give me a second.
Okay, see if I can actually see this. Well, thanks for having me, everybody. My name is Karen McJunkin. I am a developer. I'm a regional partner with Home Street Development. I have been developing in the county for 35 years. I know you're saying you started when you were 16. McJunkin.
I have no idea how to spell it.
Sure. MC
I got that.
JUN
Okay.
KIN.
Oh, I almost did that, but I thought it was something like. Okay.
I have been asked to present tonight on market rate housing. I think you guys may have had an affordable housing presentation a bit ago. So this is coming from the market rate housing perspective, and I'm going to come at it from both the supply side and the demand side. I think it's important to note, I'm not here to advocate any certain position. It's really just to give the data and sort of what we see in terms of trends from a supply and demand side in the Anne Arundel County market. You want to move to the next, starting with supply. Our supply is primarily dominated by production builders in this county. They are the lowest cost producers, the most efficient producers. And I'll get to why that matters in just a second. But so what we end up with, great housing, great housing stock, but it has tended to look the same over the years. It's the same basic townhouse. You can go to the next slide. Same basic townhome, 20 by 40 or 16 by 40, same basic rectangle for both townhouses and single family. The majority of the new for sale construction has been townhouses in recent years. You know, in the before 2010 and the early 2000s, it was predominantly single family detached. It has moved over time to be predominantly townhouses with fewer and fewer single family detached being produced and even fewer condominiums being produced. You know, why is that? I hit on this. They're very, very efficient to build the same type of unit. And why does that matter? In this particular area, we have very high land costs relative to the overall cost of the home. And you'll see a breakdown of costs in a minute. So when you have a high land cost, it makes a builder, and these are for-profit builders, build the most efficient unit they possibly can. And that's what we have here. Now, I will say, you can go to the next slide. You know, we've had some changes in the skin of the townhouses or single family detached, a little more modern look. You know, not just colonial like we used to see, in the early 2000s. So it's changed a bit. But what we haven't gotten a whole lot of is a lot of what you've been hearing lately, and that's the missing middle. You want to hit the next slide. You know, the cottage, the duplex down here, you know, some more of the cottage look in the upper right, or even a sixplex that you see here. We haven't gotten a lot of that. And a lot of that has to do with, again, we're dominated by production builders in this market. And also because in its current state, our zoning and subdivision regulations don't make it economically feasible to build these. And let me give you an example. In R5 zone, which is 5 units to the acre, the minimum lot width is 50 feet. And so if you've got a production builder that's paying a high price for that lot, they're going to maximize what they can put on that lot. And so a 20-foot wide cottage does not maximize the production of that lot. So now I will say that, I think there's been some effort recently on the part of staff and the council to start looking into missing middle housing, and hopefully that will result in some different product types. But right now, we don't have a whole lot of this. Let me go to the next slide. Housing supply characteristics, not just what's being built, but what's it costing. In the early part of the pandemic, the supply chain collapsed and prices increased, or costs increased between 30 and 40%. We've seen that flatten out a bit in townhouses and single family construction. I will say in multifamily, costs have continued to escalate. And there's really no end in sight right now. The average new home price over the last 5 years is up 40+%, just depending on which part of the county, but overall, it's up about 40%. Another interesting statistic is the number of new home communities is down by 80% over the last 4 years. A couple of reasons, or probably more than that, but I'll give you a couple of reasons. During the pandemic, despite what we thought, and I think everybody else thought, sales went out of control. And so the existing inventory in a lot of these communities was sold quicker than anybody ever imagined. And that, you know, piled on top of that was the fact that school APF prevented a lot of new communities coming through the pipeline at that time. Now that has since changed with legislation that was passed last January. But the pipeline wasn't being refilled as quickly as houses were being sold. Will that reverse itself? You know, remains to be seen. Not a lot of buildable ground left, depends on what happens with redevelopment as well. And let's go to the next slide, and I'll just walk you through this to give you a sense of sort of where we are in terms of supply. Over on the far left, total building permits in 1990, the green is multifamily, the blue is single family. And that includes both townhouses and single family detached. And it just goes year by year up to 2023. We are in 2023 at 1,073 permits, and that's pretty much in line with the Great Recession of 2008. The trend is moving down. There's not a whole lot in the pipeline right now. Again, it may reverse itself in the future depending on rezonings and redevelopment. But right now, we're seeing a decline in permits. Next slide. Thought it might be helpful to just show what goes into the cost of a town. And so starting up at the top row lot costs, again, it's 2019, 2022, and 2024, just to give you a sense of how prices have changed over time, or costs have changed over time. Second row down, permit fees, including impact and connection fees. The cost of actually constructing the unit is the third line. Builder soft costs, the fourth line, and then the builder profit, which has remained relatively constant in terms of a percent. So the fourth column percent change, that's 2024 over 2019. And we've seen law costs go up 48% over that time period. Permit fees up 37%. Construction costs, like I mentioned before, up a little over 40%. Builder soft costs, because it's typically a percent of everything else, up a little over 40%. And then profit up 50%, again, because it's typically a percent. And then sales prices at the bottom. This 16 by 40 townhouse, and I should have said that from the beginning, that's what these costs are a part of. I would call that starter home, a 16 by 40 townhouse. And those prices back in 2019, the average was right around 354,000, and we're up to 508,000. I added the last column, the last two columns to give you an idea and sort of bring home the point of how much higher land costs are in this market versus the national average. The top line is probably the one to key in on. And that is, our land costs run about 30 to 31% of the total cost of the house, or the total price, and national average is about 17%. Another one, the permit fees are double the national average here. In total dollars, it's not as significant as the lot cost, but from it's double what the national average is. Am I taking questions as we go? Or at the end? Feel free to ask questions. Yeah, sure.
In the previous slide, I
Yeah,
just
we can
wouldn't
go back.
no, well, it's just the term multifamily. Does that refer to the townhomes,
No, multifamily would be apartments
apartments?
or condominiums.
And single family is either townhome or detached?
In the previous slide, that's how the county tracks
Okay,
it.
I wasn't sure what the multifamily meant.
Yes.
Is there a specific threshold for what's considered multifamily, or the one that you showed that had like five?
It's a shared entrance is what, so that would be a multifamily.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes,
How are you providing for the green space deficit or the requirements that are required by the county's environment department? Is it the open space that you're utilizing to account for the green space necessary? That's when you cut down a tree, you have to allow the space.
well, there are lots of environmental regulations and requirements. We have an open space requirement, we have a forest conservation requirement, we have a recreation area requirement. So all those end up as under an umbrella of open areas, if you will.
Okay, thank you.
And so, I always thought when I was younger, that townhomes were a lot more economical and less expensive than homes. But they're approaching the price of homes that I'm aware of.
Well, new
mean,
construction, I'm talking new construction, not resale. So new single family detached, which obviously is not up here, is solidly, even for the affordable, in the sixes and high sixes and up in Anne Arundel County. You can't, yeah. 7, right,
Putting it nice.
or 8.
Yeah.
What factors contribute to the higher land costs?
It's supply demand,
Is what?
supply demand.
Okay.
But what does that mean though? Because we're talking land. I mean, what supplies are impacting the cost of the land?
Well,
That's not the
there's a
construction part of it.
there's a base demand for housing. And there are builders in the market to supply that housing. They know what the demand is. They know they can sell a house. And so they're in competition to buy that lot, to provide that house. When you've got competition chasing a limited supply, it's driving the price up.
Especially the permits being as low as they are right now, That certainly doesn't help our system, because the inventory is so much lower. I mean,
Right.
Obviously, what exists is there, but
I was
what
gonna
is
say,
being built is so low.
are you running out of space?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is what a lot of times, what has happened in the past, let's say, you know, I'm picking a round figure. Let's say there's a 100-acre farm or something. You know, you and I could, you know, and the person selling it wants to sell it for $1 million. Well, we couldn't afford that. But a developer who may say, I'm not ready to build there today, but I can see in 5, 10, 15 years, we'll be ready to develop that. So we'll just buy it and put it on the shelf.
Yeah,
And that happens a lot.
makes sense.
I don't know if this is even a thing. It's interesting that chart that shows from 1990 up to current. Be interested to see, is there a way to track the amount of available space for purchase, right?
available ground that could be.
Yeah, like, cause in 1990, the landscape plan in Arundel County probably looked a lot different than it does today. And so it'd be interesting to see if there's a way to track the amount of available lots or acreage for development versus what's available today.
That's a constant analysis that
Yeah.
we certainly try and do. I mean, and I think it's called carrying capacity, basically.
Yeah.
And I think the planning staff does that as well. We may disagree on what the end result of that is, but it is being done, and it's important, you know, an important component of the entire analysis.
Right.
Of, you know, this is what you guys are here to try and decide. And there are lots of competing policies that you need to sort of sort through and figure out.
And so builder soft cost, what is that?
You know, that's selling fees, marketing,
Oh.
overhead, paying salaries for the superintendents, you know, it's all that.
Paying salaries for the superintendent?
That's out there on site.
Oh, those
monitoring.
superintendents.
Yeah, not the school superintendent. Yeah.
I was gonna say, that's interesting.
And we'll go to the next slide. This takes a look at affordability, supply affordability, and how it's changed over time and sort of the factors that have gone into it. So it's taking the numbers from the slide before, which are the sales prices, and then taking mortgage rates at 19, 22, and 24, which, you know, 3.8, 5.5, and 7.9. And then working down through to get to an affordability index, if you will. And so that this bottom line number here is the percent of the median household income in that year that you would have to earn to afford that townhouse that I just listed on the previous slide. So in 2019, we had low mortgage rates going for us. And so you could earn close to 80% of the median household income and afford that starter home. And that's kind of where the sweet spot is for, you know, workforce affordable housing. So we were there. And then we slowly really gotten away from it. In 2022, mortgage rates up a bit, prices up. You had to earn over 100% of the median household income to afford that same unit. And then you get to 2024 and we know where rates are now, and prices continue to go up. And you're at earning 133% of the median household income to afford that unit. I'll touch briefly on the demand side of things. You know, demographic trends that we've seen in the county and, you know, they ebb and flow over time. This is sort of the constant over the last few years. Household size is decreasing. You know, what does that mean? It means that there's an increased demand for individual units, but you probably don't need them quite as big. Fewer children. We'll see how that plays out in school enrollment, but we're certainly seeing fewer children in our communities these days. Lots of ethnic diversity. It's very cool to see in our new home communities. And then there is that age restricted buyer out there still in Anne Arundel County. This is a very, very nice place to live for retirees, and we see a big demand for that. what are folks looking for in communities? And again, this will come into play when you're having discussions on where should growth occur, what makes the most sense. You know, most folks, especially the younger folks these days, love walkability. They love living near something, shopping, schools, recreational amenities, those sorts of things. Lots of outdoor amenity focused, buyers, lots of folks, and this kind of goes to, you know, there is still demand for single family detached, but a lot of folks are looking for low maintenance living. I don't know if their folks never taught them how to mow a lawn, but anyhow, a lot of, you know, we sell a lot of townhomes, that have complete maintenance in the front yard, even people just don't even want to touch it. And a lot of that's because you work hard, right? And you drive home, it's a 45-minute drive home, and the last thing you want to do is that. So seeing a lot of that, and a lot of interest in different product that we just can't, deliver on an economical basis, and that goes back to that missing middle. And again, still strong, demand for single family detached. Demand drivers in this area, I think we all know what they are. It's, you know, the gold mile there, Fort Meade, NSA, it's employment growth. That's what drives demand in this area. Primarily, secondarily, it's a wonderful place to live. And we certainly did see, folks fleeing from DC during COVID that wanted to be out here. And that had something to do with, the sales that we saw during COVID.
What did COVID have to do with people wanting to leave DC?
Everything was shut down. You wanted to get away from people.
And, so it's less densely congregate.
Absolutely. So next slide, and I'll end on this one. Well, actually, I have one more slide. So when I've done this, this talk to other groups, I think I've landed on what I think the key question is for the SACs, and that is, you know, is it possible to increase the housing supply, if that's what you think is necessary, in a way that's environmentally sensitive, like you were talking about, and compatible with existing neighborhoods, and provides what buyers are looking for? Like I said before, so many competing policies in that, and it's a tough one to reconcile all those. Where do I see some of the opportunities? If there is a desire to, next slide, please. You know, to increase the supply, you know, it's focusing on the town centers, higher density in town centers. Update the zoning and subdivision regulations, so maybe you could allow the cottages, or other missing middle type housing. And then, updating zoning and subdivision regulations. So right now, as a developer, if something is zoned R5 or R10, that typically means 10 times the number of acres, let's say 50, or 10 acres for an R5. We should get 50 units on it. We typically achieve about 60% of that. So there might be an opportunity to change the subdivision regulations without having too much of an environmental impact to achieve a greater percentage of the allowable density. Might be an opportunity. Anyhow, I'll just leave you with those, not advocating for anything, just some ideas to toss out there. Yeah.
What does three-dimensional design aesthetics mean?
You know, it's instead of being prescriptive on, you know, your setbacks are this, you have to build in this envelope, it's more looking at design and being more open to out of the box design. Another tough one. I mean, and it's hard on the planners. Where do you stop? You know, can you trust that developer to do the right thing if it's not prescriptive? Any other questions?
What kind of places do have that middle housing that?
You know, you can find it quite a bit in the southeast, in Sunbelt.
Mhm. They have different zoning requirements.
Correct.
That's your question. So, just kind of go back a little bit. Let's just take the farming property that, developers are buying up and then holding on to. Are you finding that there is pushback because more than likely there's an agricultural easement, a perpetual easement in place? Are you finding a challenge with the county extinguishing these easements
You know,
to build on?
it's not really an easement for, like, we would never, just because.
For
you know-
reservation, let's just.
No, I'm gonna go back to, as a developer, we would not buy a farm and just sit on it. You know, we're a profit-making venture, so we're gonna,
Well, just using that.
but, you know, maybe your question is, do we run into roadblocks? Is that
That
really the
would be
question?
one, yeah. I mean, is the county lenient with, okay, yeah, we have, or the state, whatever, whoever.
You know,
holds the title to the
you know, easements are easements, you can't extinguish it. No, the county isn't lenient, nor should they be.
Well, you
That being
can
said,
extend-
you know,
can
there are
request
ways to
extension.
change the regulations.
Yeah.
Or zoning, if that's what you wanna do.
You can request to extinguish an easement. Don't mean it'll be granted. but you can
Exactly,
request.
yeah.
And the other part I had, I didn't write it down, sorry, thank you.
You mentioned that the size of that one lot, said it was, the example you gave.
A 50-foot wide lot?
Yes, what would be a change that could, promote higher denser growth or promote the objectives that you're outlining here?
Well, let's say, again, I'm gonna stick with that R5, because I use that to say we typically achieve 60% or 30 units, right? So let's say instead of a 50-foot wide lot, you allowed a 30-foot wide lot with 5-foot side yards. And then you've got a 20-foot wide cottage. And you basically increased your achievable density. Because you're doing 2 for every 50-foot lot plus 10 feet.
Making your houses more like what you would see in Baltimore, and they're skinny and narrow.
Yeah, or, you know, someone could choose to do a 36-foot wide and do a little bit wider
Yeah.
or deeper.
That, 60% of allowable density, what type of, regulations are you running into that prevent you from increasing that number? Is it like environmental issues, or is it like walkways need to be there, you know, like?
You know, sometimes it's parking requirements, sometimes it's rec area requirements, recreational area. You know, that part of the code in particular is a vestige of a long time ago, when it was desired to just have this big open area. What's much more market accepted now, and no amenities, and so it was just, it's a
Big
formula.
field in the middle of the neighborhood.
So many square feet per house you had to provide. What's more market accepted now is a smaller area, but you've got a pickleball court, you've got a dog park, and, you know, all the other stuff, pool, clubhouse. So if you reduce that area requirement, but instead, you know, you have all the other amenities, then you can increase your buildable area. And there are, you know, a few other examples of things like that. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric DeVito. I am the Vice President and General Counsel at Greenberg Gibbons. You're probably familiar with some of our projects, Annapolis Town Center, the Wall Chapels, Edgewater Village Center. We also have projects throughout Maryland, and now we even have projects in other states. So I was tasked tonight to sort of give you a feel for retail development in Anne Arundel County, sort of how it's progressed, and to sort of explain some of the challenges to developing new retail, and to just sort of answer some of the burning questions that I always get, you know, why can't I have a Trader Joe's in my neighborhood? Why can't I have nice, you know, village center retail near my neighborhood and all that? So I'll get into some of that tonight through the presentation and sort of explain to you what retailers, sort of how retailers look at things, and why there isn't a Trader Joe's on more corners in Anne Arundel County. So, and I welcome questions along the way. There'll be some information presented here on numbers and costs and things, and also just sort of general, sort of how retail gets developed, so. I kind of went into some of this, that's who we are. We develop all sorts of retail. We develop from the high density, vertically integrated mixed use to what I would call, all the way down to what I would call curbside retail. And curbside retail would be sort of either a pad site, which just has like a, typical fast food restaurant just sitting there on one pad, to what we call a multi-tenant building, which it maybe has 3 or 4 tenants in it, all in one building. But the parking is right there by the retail. People pull up, they go in, they do some quick service, they get back in their car and they go. That's what we would consider curbside retail. And honestly, village center type retail is more of that curbside style of retail. So these are just some of the examples of some of our projects, including some neighborhood shopping centers. Turf Valley in Howard County, I don't know if you've ever been there, we developed that. And Edgewater, again, is another example of what I would call, neighborhood retail. It's a grocery anchored small retail shopping center. So what are some trends in the retail industry? So the Amazon effect, which we're all well aware of. There was a belief that Amazon would just flat out kill retail. That has not happened. In fact, just the opposite. A lot of retailers believe that having a physical presence is key to the retail. Even if they have really strong online sales, they felt that even that showroom, sort of having a brick and mortar presence, helps more sales. So brick and mortar is still alive. What's happened though on the Amazon effect, though, that first line is your typical anchors are pretty much your Macy's, your Lord and Taylor, your Sears, your JCPenney's, pretty much done. And Macy's just announced closing another, 150 stores. JCPenney's not long for this world. So I mean, those anchors are gone. What's happened is in retail is grocery stores are now what is considered the anchors. Because grocery stores bring in tons and tons of foot traffic. You may go to Dick's Sporting Goods once a month. You go to your grocery store probably 2 or 3 times a week. I don't know if you're like me, I'm there all the time. And so that's why retailers want to be near grocery stores, because that's all that foot traffic that increases their own shoppers. So grocery's the new anchor. Off-price are really doing well. Your TJX brands. TJX brands are Marshalls, Home Goods, Home Sense, TJ Maxx, of course, and then Ross and others alike of that ilk are all doing really well. And again, that's because Amazon can't really compete that well with the off-price. I mean, those off-price can hold their own against Amazon. That's why they're so good. This is an interesting stat, which shows that retail is relatively healthy. 45% more openings last year than closings. So that's a good trend for retail. However, 65% lower new retail construction since 2008 through 2022, and I'm sure 2023 is the same. I'll show you some reasons why construction of new retail is still on decline. Rent growth is one of the reasons. I have some slides we'll talk about that. Retail rents, when I say retail rents, meaning rents that a tenant can pay to rent space, to lease space, that's still relatively stagnant. In order for new retail development to occur, those retail rents need to climb a bit. And then there's always this threat of recession, but again, COVID was so bad to the retail industry, it probably couldn't be anywhere else. Probably the single worst thing that's ever happened to the retail industry, and if it weathered that, it pretty much can. So this is just some examples. The retail trend, you see like a lot of grocery stores on there, you see a lot of those off-price. These are all tenants that we've entered into leases before in our various shopping centers. So we've done deals with all of these types of tenants. These are all what we would consider national good credit tenants, that if you're building a shopping center, you want a lot of these in your center. So you fill it up with some good, high credit, national retailers, and then you backfill it with some local flavor, right? You can't fill the whole center. You don't really want to fill the whole center with them, but you do need a couple of them to keep your center healthy, and then you backfill with some local.
So what is the essential and experiential? I'm curious about that.
So essential, so personal services are starting to make their way into a lot of shopping centers. You'll see like what you never see in the past, physical therapists. right? A physical therapist would be in a typical sort of suburban office building. Now you see them in retail. There now is a retail presence for massage, physical therapy. Dentist offices are now in a lot of retail shopping centers. So that's sort of this essential need-based services, mathnasium, tutoring services. These are all types of things. In the past, you wouldn't have considered those to be retail. They are retail now. And in fact, it's so bad, and we're gonna talk about this at the end, a lot of retailers have restrictions and exclusives. So if you get a big, one of these retailers that you really want, like Whole Foods, well, they have a bunch of exclusions in their lease. They say, well, I don't wanna be next to a restaurant, and I don't wanna be next to a kid's tutoring, and I don't wanna be next to a dance studio, and I don't, so when you see retail evolving to where some of these essential services wanna be next to these grocery stores, well, you have to go get waivers and things, you have to go get permission. Parking is one big thing. So they don't want someone coming and parking in front of their store and staying there for 3 hours to go sit in a restaurant because it's eating up parking for their customers. That's a big issue. And they also like a certain clientele that comes to the shopping center. They want people who are gonna spend money at Whole Foods. They want those types of tenants in the shopping center. And they have ideas. I'm not saying I agree with all of them, but they all have ideas in their head as the type of customer base they want. So they like to preclude certain uses.
And the experiential is like the fitness places.
Experiential would be fitness, would be any sort of entertainment type use too. I mean, those are, but definitely fitness, and there's things like, there's something called Putt Shack now, where it's sort of an indoor putt-putt golf course. Those are becoming sort of more popular. You might start seeing around here. That's what I would call experiential. Axe throwing places, you know, those sorts of things.
I don't want them here.
So the other, one of the other reasons why, you know, when you're the big chains, like you mentioned, the Macy's, the JCPenney. I think a lot of that kind of has, I want to say the fashion trends have changed a bit. I'll pick on Jason because you're sitting right next to me. But did you come from work?
They did.
This is what we were, do you have to wear a tie?
I don't.
When was the last time you wore a tie at work? Exactly. And the thing is, it's, and the ladies have more, basically, I think the country's gone to, like in the workplace, the more of a casual, dress code.
No question, but Men's Warehouse is still there.
Yeah.
Still doing okay. You go to Nordstrom Rack, they still have a suit and tie section and ties. It's all still there. It's just, the experience is different, right? You're not going to shopping or department stores anymore. And, you know, I've got a daughter, a 21-year-old daughter, and, you know, she buys a lot of dresses. She buys a lot of them online.
Yeah.
You know, she's not going to the mall as much. If she does, she's going to Free People or places like that. She's definitely not going to Macy's. So that's good.
Size X, and that's it.
I just have a question, Karen Kavani, as far as to when some of these places, such as Whole Foods, have clauses about who can be their neighbors and things. Who is now at the responsibility to find those tenants or reject? Like, is that something that's put out to the community prior, or is it just like if another tenant wants to come in next door, they find out when they apply, or who now is it on to build?
It's on the owner of the shopping center, the landlord. The landlord enters into a lease with Whole Foods.
Okay,
In the lease, it will have these exclusives and restrictions spelled out in the lease. And
okay,
it's on the landlord's obligation to not lease any other spaces that violate that lease. And in fact, when you sign, the next person who comes in line signs a lease, it references those Whole Foods exclusives in that new tenant's lease. So they know they've signed a lease and they've agreed not to do these things that I can't do.
sorry for my ignorance.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's something a lot of people don't realize.
Right,
by
and
the
I
way.
feel like that needed to be spoken on. I feel like that's something that.
It's
needs to be
awful,
heard.
and we've done it to ourselves as landlords, and I hate it, and I wish we never would agree to one restriction and exclusive, it's just terrible, but sometimes to get one of these tenants at your shopping center, you have to do this, and, you know, we're our own worst enemies sometimes.
It makes a little more sense now, so.
Yep.
For the public, you know, and who don't know to hear that,
Yep.
you know.
Exactly, sure. So challenges to building new retail, I'll run through each of these on other slides. Demographics, every retailer, at least your, you know, bigger retailers like your Trader Joe's, your Whole Foods, the first thing to look at is demographics, population, population density, income level, Education is a really big thing. A lot of the retailers like Trader Joe's like to see a highly educated population. The higher the education, the more they spend money in their store. At least a lot of them have done these studies. That's density rooftops, daytime population. So maybe there aren't a lot of rooftops, but there are a ton of people who work in the area during the day. Like we were just talking about Whole Foods. Whole Foods loves it when there's a lot of people working in the day because they go to the salad bar for lunch. They pick up some groceries on before they head home. So they look for daytime populations too. Traffic, everyone thinks, oh, traffic's terrible. Yeah, the retailer really likes traffic. A lot of cars. They love traffic jams. They like hundreds of thousands of cars sitting on their road. They love it and they look for it. Cost prohibitive, we'll talk about that. And then the restrictions and exclusives we just mentioned. So demographics, here's some example so these were actually taken straight out of shopping center brochures that we were actually looking to purchase. Some of these shopping centers. So they promote their demographics. So this was a shopping center in Harford County. There's the population, that's growth, average household income, home value, daytime employees. Remember I mentioned that? This is Howard County over here. So incomes, education levels, it's all sort of spelled out. So that's the first thing that a shopping center owner and a retailer, they look at these numbers to see how it compares.
Sorry, those
Yes.
words, I don't know if it's just me, they're very small, I really can't see. Is there any way to enlarge that? The top, at the bottom, I just really can't see.
At the bottom?
Yeah,
If not, no worries.
I can read some of them to you. I mean,
Yeah,
it's-
'cause I can't.
the average household income in Howard County is 188,000, compared to sort of the USA as an average of 105. So that shows you sort of the disparity. Back here, bachelor's degree or higher, Howard County 65%, USA 35%. So a retailer really likes Howard County.
So Harvard or Howard?
Howard, this is Howard.
Okay, so you're comparing to that.
That's Howard.
Okay.
This is
Yeah, I
Howard.
think that was-
So Anne Arundel's probably between Hartford and Howard on these demographics. So, and again, I'm just using this as an example of what a retailer would look like. So they look at Howard County and they say, all right, this is where I want to be. Trader Joe's. Here's an example of Trader Joe's that, a lot of people say, why can't I have Trader Joe's? Trader Joe's, number one thing is they look for population density, education, incomes, all of that. Here's an example. There is one Trader Joe's in Antelope. One. It's in Annapolis.
Yeah.
There's one in Columbia, Howard County. There are two in Baltimore, none in the city. There's one in Towson, we built it actually, that's our Trader Joe's. And there's one in Pikesville. And then that's the DC area, right? And I'm gonna show you why in a second. So, this is some demographics on District of Columbia. Look at that green box. 4,000, population per square kilometer, 4,000. So the total population of DC is only 670,000, very close to Anne Arundel. Look at the density. Now look at Baltimore, next one. Similar population, drops down to 2,700, right? Now look at Anne Arundel, 500. So the population of DC is roughly 8 times the population density as Anne Arundel County. That's why there are probably 8 times as many Trader Joe's in DC as there are in Anne Arundel County. So unfortunately, to get another Trader Joe's in Anne Arundel County somewhere, you're just gonna need more population growth. And honestly, it's not growing very much. I mean, and Anne Arundel is actually one of the higher growing jurisdictions in the state, and it's still not growing very much. So you're probably stuck with one Trader Joe's for quite some time, sorry. Densification, some examples of it. House in Roanoke, have you been to Towson? This is a relatively new development. We built this. This is what I would call true urban densification, vertically integrated. Whole Foods and other retail on the first floor, residential above. That's retail residential, that's a hotel, dual flag hotel. That's a lot of density on 5 acres. Right, so that's a way to create density in a relatively urban setting. That's one example. Next one. This is our Hunt Valley Town Center. If you've ever been to Hunt Valley, Maryland, way north of the city. We rebuilt the mall, in the, early 2000s. It used to be an old typical mall, looked like Marley Station, honestly. It was on deadmalls.com. It was a dead mall. Built it, tore it all down, rebuilt it. This is sort of a main street, this existing retail, that's Wegmans.
Yeah.
This pink, that was an old Sears, it's like an old Sears and an old Sears Auto Center. It's all been repurposed. This has been repurposed into fitness, furniture stores, some quick serve restaurants. And then back in the back, this is what I wanted to show you, next to the theater, that's a Regal. Next to that theater was a parking lot. Just a flat parking lot, looked just like this. On the left is now an Avalon apartment building. Right next to it is a Brightview Senior Living Assisted Living Facility. This is structured, both structured parking, straight up on 3 acres. So you're densifying an existing shopping center. So you're going and taking a parking lot, you're getting density by basically turning existing impervious area into housing units, you know, assisted living and regular apartment. That's a way to densify a suburban shopping center. Annapolis Mall is an opportunity to do something like this. You know, there are other opportunities to do something like this, not everywhere. Again, it's, you know, there's 800,000 square feet of retail at this shopping center. So it was a good prime opportunity to do that sort of thing. You can't do it. So Region 3, for those of you in Region 3, you know what that is. That just needs completely torn down. I don't know that there's really any way to fix that, but many have tried and many will probably.
Where is that?
Small state.
Well, I just wanna add.
So stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you go back to that one, the other one I wanted to hide, that star right there, this is actually a county property. It's 7409 WVNA Boulevard, which is actually going through a redevelopment proposal right now. That's interesting. A lot of people think it could be sort of that vertically integrated mixed use sort of thing that you see in urban areas. I don't see it. It's just that area just hasn't evolved that way. It definitely could be way better than it is now. It can probably do some of that missing middle that Karen was talking about. Probably do a little bit of retail, a little bit of office. It's got great possibilities, but it's not gonna be a vertically integrated mixed use. It's just the high rise stuff.
You know, that red star means Macy's, you know that.
Yeah. Next one. Region 1, I didn't actually have any really good examples of it. You know, BWI takes up a huge landmass in Region 1. You've got Arundel Mills sitting there right on the edge of Region 1. What Arundel Mills is a huge vacuum that just sucks all the retail opportunities out of the whole area. I've seen it happen in many, many places. I'm from Ohio, and if you've ever been to Columbus, there's a place called Easton Town Center. It's just a gorgeous town center. But if you drive 2 miles outside of Easton Town Center, it is a desolate wasteland. Every retailer got sucked into Easton Town Center. Arundel Mills has that kind of effect. So fortunately, I don't think we're that desolate around it, but it's creating a lot of residential opportunities in Region 1 because of it. I don't know that there are a ton of retail opportunities.
Arundel Mills is also the most popular destination in Maryland.
Yes.
So,
It's like 6 million visitors.
yeah, I mean, people think Ocean
Like,
City, but
It
nobody
used to
goes
be
to
the
Ocean
Inner
City.
Harbor for like the longest time downtown.
And then there
Baltimore,
was-
but well, from the day Arundel Mills opened, it's been number
Yeah.
one. Where people literally travel to go there.
Yep, it is.
And it's very, it's close there, so.
Yeah, and I guess that's making the point that the type of retail, I mean, that doesn't mean retail, village center type or curbside retail will work around it. It's just to get any sort of movement on retail around Arundel Mills is gonna be hard.
Yeah.
So traffic counts, these were some examples that I was talking about before. This one right here is Annapolis, right? So this is West Street, that's 111,000 cars a day.
Yeah.
That's why all that retail is sort of in that general vicinity, because of all that traffic. Up top, that is, Route 2, so that's over by Marley Station. So I mean, even there's not a ton of traffic, 40,000 cars a day. It's a lot, it sounds like a lot, but honestly, compared to this, it's not a lot.
Right.
So that's why Marley Station is probably not a great sort of retail. if you're gonna redo that mall, it's not gonna be a ton of retail, it's gonna be mixed use. There will be some retail, but it's probably gonna be mostly residential, office, other things too. And then this is near BWI, so tons of traffic on 97, obviously, 130,000 cars a day on 97. So that's why Quarterfield Crossing does really well, it's right off the highway in and out. But once you get off 97, the traffic really drops down. So again, that's another challenge to, depends on the retail you want, right? If you want the sort of big national ones, they're not gonna be attracted to get much into these areas just because of
Because,
traffic.
the other problem is, where your traffic is going to and from. You got Fort Meade right there and you're stuck, and you're stuck. You're not gonna have any, you can't put any retail there. Significant retail.
So these are some costs. I put this over here on the left in red, and I'm gonna talk about that in a second, but this is just, it's a project that would be what I would consider sort of a village retail project with some pad sites, multi-tenant building. This, I know you probably can't read it, but I'll just run down. It's like basically the way this sort of pencils out is it generates about, the average rents are somewhere between $32 and $35 a square foot. Does everybody know what I mean by that? What a per square foot rent is that a retail tenant pays? If I'm renting 2,000 square feet and I have a $40 square foot rent, I'm paying $80,000 a year in rent, right? So that's what to build new construction, we need to see rents sort of in that $40 a square foot range to make it work.
What's the profit you need at that?
Well, I'll show you. So right now, this is these $32 to $35 rents. It generates about $700,000 a year in net operating income. So that's after you pay expenses to operate the shopping center and all the taxes and all those sorts of things. Generates about $700,000 in net income, but it took about an $11.5 million investment. So it's simply 7 divided by 11 is a 7% return. I could take $11 million and put it in a money market account right now, and probably make 6%. So are you gonna take all of the risk to build, to lease up? You have vacancy risk, you have all those risks to make 7% return is really hard. That's why I was saying, that's at those rents though. You get $40 a rent, $40 a square foot rent. Now, okay, there's some risk reward there. Maybe if you're gonna push this number up, it drives your profit up. And so that makes it more attractive to possibly build new retail. And so that's the tipping point. And there aren't a lot of places where you're getting $40 a square foot rent in Arundel right now. Not saying it's not gonna happen. It's just now it's difficult. So the other thing I want to point out, this pink line right here, which I know you can't read, that's $1 million in permits and fees. So if I want to build that new building, I'm paying connection charges, I'm paying permit fees, I'm doing all these other things. If my total costs are 11.5, and that's basically almost 10% of my cost, almost 10% of my costs are just paying permits and fees. It's a challenge. It's causing pain on the pro forma to get some of this stuff to work. And again, this is an example of what I would consider village retail, that a lot of people would like to see their curbside retail. So you either need to get higher rents, or you need to drive these costs down to start making them
Makes sense.
more opportunities. So this is just more example of that. All tenants look at what's called health ratio, so it's the percentage of their rent, or the percentage of their revenues they can pay in rent, and the different categories can pay more. So the example is, if I'm paying $100,000 a year in rent, and I have a 10% health ratio, I need to make $1 million in revenue in order to pay my rent and still be a healthy business. So that's what that says. So the next one is just an example. So based on that other one, so these are the revenues that those tenants that we modeled would have to get to hit that. But if I wanted to get $40 a square foot, which I said was my tipping point, I need $500,000 more a year in revenue on that number. So 1.8 has got to be 2.3 million. So that restaurant's got to generate $2.3 million in sales to be healthy. So that's just sort of an example of that. Yeah.
How do these numbers change based on redevelopment? I know you're talking new, but is it just more?
It's all in your costs. So that pro forma I showed you originally, those numbers were based on just buying land and building on it. So there's a land cost and then there's vertical construction costs. If it's a redevelopment, it just goes into your cost side. So now I've got to buy the land, tear down the buildings, and then do all that work. It's just part of your cost. It goes to that 11.5 million bottom line number. Now, if I own the land, let's say I own this land and it's a dilapidated shopping center, I've owned it for 50 years, then I at least don't have to buy the land, but I do still have to come up with the money to demolish everything and new construction. So it's ultimately, it's just another cost that you have to deal with.
Necessary.
Any more questions on the costs or numbers? So restrictions and exclusions, we talked about this before, so I don't need to talk about it much more, but sort of like a grocery, so, you know, a lot of people don't realize Whole Foods has a doesn't even let people have you can't have a bakery next to Whole Foods. There's a Nothing Bun Cake in Annapolis, I don't know if you've seen it there. We had to go get permission from Whole Foods to be able to put a Nothing Bun Cake there, because they have a bakery exclusion in there. They don't want people competing with them to sell anything they sell in their store. You know, juice, smoothies, all those sorts of things.
They smart, they're just smart.
They're smart and we're dumb. That's exactly
That's
right.
it.
You know, an off-price retailer like a Ross will want to be the only off-price clothing retailer in the entire shopping center. That causes a challenge. Fight back with that. Dick's won't let anybody else sell sporting goods. You know, even restaurants are getting into it. So if you have a hibachi restaurant, we're the only Japanese food in the restaurant. Mediterranean, same way. They all want it. Salad bar, you get a chop, you better believe they're gonna have a restriction that no one else can sell salads in the chops.
No?
And it happens on that. Now, those are just exclusions. Restrictions are issues, they wanna control their parking lot.
Right.
So they don't want you putting anything in the parking lot right out of their front door. They don't want certain businesses being right next to them. That will then park in their parking lot and go to that business. So they have a lot of restrictions there. They call them their critical areas. We don't see it as much in Arundel, but we're gonna see it. The new urban design likes to flip everything around. Nobody likes to see a parking lot anymore. Everyone likes to see like sort of buildings with entrances right on streets and sidewalks. Well, retailers hate that. They absolutely hate it. Retailers love it when people either walk down the street or drive down the street and see a big field of full cars in a parking lot. That people can just get out of their car, run right in the store, and they love it. So it's been a challenge to convince jurisdictions, well, if you want Whole Foods in your jurisdiction, you're gonna have to get off some of these new age design things because Whole Foods not coming. They're not putting an entrance on the back side of their store, so people can walk off the sidewalk into it. They want an entrance on the parking lot, so people can wheel their cart out to their car, get in and get out. And they want convenience, that's what they're reaching, so there's that. But, that's not going anywhere, we're gonna have to find a way to sort of get everybody back to the table. But I think that's actually, it.
It's interesting, the Annapolis Town Center, is that why the Whole Foods, when you pull in, like, let's say from Riva Road, it's restaurant, and it's like furniture store, various, you know, random stuff. And then Whole Foods is kind of isolated with the parking garage and everything.
Well, yeah, I mean, the requirement of that Whole Foods is, you know, they have a parking lot underneath the
Yeah.
store too. So they would only come there if they had their own, and no one, I know people probably do park there, but it's restricted parking. The only people who can park under Whole Foods is Whole Foods customers. And then if you go directly across the street from them, they have all that express parking that is strictly reserved for Whole Foods. So if they can get that, then they're okay. They don't have a problem with, sort of other users around them,
Yeah,
per se.
the restaurant shared that lot, like next to the cemetery.
They do,
Yeah, and then Whole Foods has its like,
correct. Yeah, but no, everyone going to Whole Foods, is either parking under Whole Foods or they're parking in the one directly across from where the wine store is. They're
Yeah.
parking in that garage, or under Whole Foods. Any other questions?
Are there any more plans for Glen Burnie Mall? I know that there have been some upgrades, updated stores. Are you familiar with any, like, come to mind, any plans that you know of?
I personally am not, I haven't seen any recently, but, you know, there are a lot of malls, I would say there are a lot of malls in this county that are ripe for redevelopment, just because there hasn't been a ton of new development in the last 10 years or so. And we still have good population, we still have good income, we still have good education levels. So it's really gonna be, you know, I think some of these older malls, you're gonna have a chance, at least the strips, you're gonna have a chance to revitalize some of them. Yes.
Now, like the areas, like if you think about the areas near Fort Meade, NSA, the strip of 175, where there really isn't a lot of, I mean, there's retail,
Right.
but it's like older, maybe more independently owned businesses, but there's a lot of traffic. Like, are there any plans to do anything with that area, or can you not really touch it since there's already?
Well, if they're renovating that now.
Well,
Part of that.
then,
Well, to where the car wash is.
Yeah, I mean, it's,
I mean-
there's so many different owners involved.
okay.
That's part of the problem, you either have to have some master plan where someone takes control of all of it.
Right.
To do it, or you have to, like, with something like that, if it's sort of individually owned properties.
Barbershop.
Yes, there are grants, I mean, by the way, I'm on the economic development board for Arundel County, and there are grants that economic development does give out for storefront renovations and to improve certain properties, and that's a good way to help beautify and improve. But for a developer to get interested in a site like that, it's a lot of work for very little returns, frankly. Yes.
Hi, Alyssa Jones from Region 3. One of the questions I had for you is, we're talking about the profit only being at 7.13% for the developers, which isn't something good. I think one of our goals is to try to get affordable housing to our communities, and the retail space kind of goes hand in hand with that. As a developer who has a lot of things going on in the region, how do you think the SAC could have some kind of help towards you guys? Are you looking for like less permitting fees from the county? Are you looking for just completely rezoning spaces? Or what do you think that we could actually do to help?
I mean, it's a couple things, so a revitalization bill in the county would probably help. Anything that would lower the cost of acquiring an existing shopping center and redeveloping it would make redeveloping an existing dilapidated shopping center that much more attractive and to get people interested in it. You know, there are public funds that you could bring to the table that were, like, maybe there's some major infrastructure improvement or road improvement that needs to be done. So that's one option. The revitalization bill could do things like, you know, if it's 100% impervious, for example, it's an existing shopping center that's a covered parking lot and buildings. You know, I know everyone wants to bring everything up to current stormwater management these days, but there are ways to say, look, if you bring it back to 50% of what it needs to be, then that's improving it from what its present condition is, and it's also an incentive to get somebody to do that. So that's another opportunity. To just sort of, again, it's all coming down to the development costs for the developer, so anything you can do to lower those development costs makes the project.
So, I mean, the other thing is, I'm kind of just, maybe not a full shopping center, a full, mall or anything, but the smaller, standalone lots that are around the county. Some of them are a major eyesore. And they're like, well, this is it, and nobody's, there doesn't seem to be any plans. The past 20 years, there's no plans.
No, and that kind of gets back to those economic development grants are one way, but I mean, getting a developer interested to go pick up one lot at a time, at least a developer like us, is difficult. Now, maybe there'll be some entrepreneurial commercial developers who see these as opportunities. But the problem is it's all based on the rent that you can pay. So unless the area as a whole improves, that will drive up the rents. Making any great investment into those existing properties is that much more difficult.
I mean, like, just off the top of my head, I mean, at, Old Mill and Veterans Highway. There's a couple of, there's McDonald's there and everything, but then there's the one gas station that shut down, it's been shut down for 10 years. And it just looks, I mean, it's like, as soon as you're trying to come into that neighborhood, it's like, oh, this doesn't look good.
No, I agree. And honestly, that's probably right for
Anything.
pretty much anything. And I don't know if there's issues with, because anytime an old gas station goes out, you have to remediate, so you have to remove all the tanks, you have to go through that whole program. So I don't know what the story is there, and maybe someone doesn't have the money to remediate, which is adding to the cost. But you're right, it's a perfect corner. But again, it's probably the type of retail that's gonna go there is probably a fast food with a drive-through.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, it's just because of it's a relatively small, I know it's a decent sized lot, but it's relatively small.
Yep.
There's not much you could do there. It's on a really good high traffic intersection, good access. That's probably what it wants to be when it grows up.
Yeah, when it grows up.
Yeah.
Well, there's the dispensary right down the street from it, so, you know,
Yeah,
just
right.
just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I'm just telling you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, thanks for kind of, putting up with the logistics of all of this today. It's a little bit, different, but I thought it was good to kind of hear from these folks who joined us today. What I wanted to do today was I wanted to kind of circle back to, that housing discussion that we had previously where we had wanted to have a breakout in person and have some discussion. And because of the virtual setting, we didn't do it at that point. I wanted at this point to have kind of a group discussion about some of our housing needs and opportunities, and then non-residential needs and opportunities in our region as we see them. And I wanted to start off with, we just closed at the end of February, that housing and economic development survey that was put out to the public. It was kind of based on some initial draft strategies based on our some of our conversations in this group here. We are going to be putting together a more formal summary of those the public input that we got from that. So this tonight is not a scientific discussion in any way of those results, but I do want to at least give you a sense of some of the range of ideas that were expressed by members of the public who took those surveys. And I'll start by saying we had 81 respondents in total to that online question. We're supposed to call it a questionnaire, not a survey.
Was it just from Region 3 or the county?
They were primarily Region 3 when they provided their zip codes. I think there were a couple that maybe were outside of the region, but primarily Region 3. And so one of the questions we had was, what do people think about duplexes and triplexes in the, as a potential opportunity in the region? The highest proportion of respondents, as you can see in the graph here, the highest proportion either didn't like that option at all or had various concerns about it. And I think a lot of this kind of kept coming back in some of these questions. A lot of people just don't want to see any more housing. They don't want to see any more population growth. They are concerned about traffic impacts and all of that. And that was a recurring theme in the responses that we got. But about a third of the respondents said that they did like the smaller, more affordable aspect of this as a different type of housing product than what we can typically find or what's typically coming on the market. There were open-ended questions in this survey. I think some of you did take the survey. I think I remember seeing some of your emails in there. Many respondents, again, advocated for no additional housing in the region, but otherwise, some of the open-ended responses gave some more nuance to those sentiments. There were geographic areas where people said that they do want this kind of housing along Severn Road, Gambrels, Crofton, Millersville, Glen Burnie. More generally, they were saying places like neighborhoods near the town center or near transit or near shopping centers. Those are places where people felt like this kind of housing product would be appropriate. Not in areas zoned for single family housing and not along Queenstown Road.
Okay, so you said along Severn, where would you build along Severn Road?
There's so much open space. On Severn?
On Severn Road?
No. Severn.
No.
Well, you know what, you're right, cause
Yeah.
it do go back, I'm sorry, because I always talk about the beginning of Reese and then going to, okay, but yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Okay, I mean, where the orchard used to be, that's all townhouses.
Yes, it is, I definitely, yeah.
I think it shows how
and the
bad the need
provinces,
is,
so.
though.
And the front. It really do, it really is a need though, that it's really that bad over there, so, yeah.
And some of the other comments on this type, duplexes and triplexes, were that some wanted some kind of a style guide to make sure that they fit in with the context of the neighborhood that they go into. And making sure that we address parking issues, and that's something that I've heard, even in townhome communities as well. If we go to the next slide, I'm sorry, as soon as you got up.
So that White House is supposed to show a multi-family,
That was a
Like a
duplex.
duplex, yeah.
that was a
Different type.
duplex,
Yeah.
so they have two entrances.
And that, yeah, in that case, the traditional house that had been split to.
Right,
to form two.
yeah.
Now, we had a similar question about quadplexes, basically, what do you think about quadplexes? And again, 44%, the largest group did not like the option at all. They, again, don't want any more housing. About a third have concerns with parking, water and sewer, those kinds of infrastructure needs. But in the open-end responses, again, many people just don't want any more housing at all, but geographic areas were mentioned where people think it would be appropriate near Broadwell Light Rail Station, Glen Burnie, Millersville, Crane Highway, and kind of generally close to transit and public services. And again, not in Queenstown Road. So I think we have some folks from Queenstown Road.
Just because of that, I said, let's build a 600-unit townhouse right along Queenstown Road. So
It's a lot of
There's
land down there. It's
There's
just
some
a lot.
concern along Queenstown Road because of a workforce development housing
Mhm.
project that is going in there. And I will say that, I was gonna mention this at the end, we are gonna have an outreach with the Queenstown Road residents to kind of understand some of the concerns there and to hear from those folks. There are some legacy zoning issues, going on in that area. If you go to the next one, we asked about cottage courtyards and bungalow court type housing. These are ones that are kind of centered around a common area. There's a little more interest in this housing type. About a third of the people, again, have concerns about parking, but about a third also like that this is, again, smaller, more affordable. Geographic areas mentioned, Glen Burnie, older communities and former rural areas. And then also Marley Neck was mentioned as a place where at least one respondent felt like this would be appropriate. Open-ended comments, there were a lot of comments that I thought were really smart, actually. Concerns about who's going to take care of the common space and ensuring that there are covenants that kind of govern how people live together in a situation like this. So, governing noise and animals and recreation and this kind of thing.
Yeah, that's why I say HOA was in my head
Exactly.
immediately, so.
For better or for worse.
And then you can definitely have that within your, within, I guess, the leasing agreement when you
Yeah.
do come, so that.
Exactly. Yeah, so, and that was what I wanted to share regarding housing from this survey, and then kind of open it up to you all to get your thoughts. We know that we have housing issues and housing affordability issues in the county, and it's definitely on the radar of some of our elected officials, as well. But we do have a number of recommendations from Plan 2040, and we kind of talked about this in our last housing meeting that kind of fall into 4 buckets. There are recommendations that, to change the county code to support the ability to build more housing types like this. And some of that has already been underway. There's been there's been an ADU bill that has gone forward already and has been adopted. So, accessory dwelling units are now permitted. Other recommendations included changes to the development review process to make that process go a little bit simpler, and the cost of that would not be borne quite so heavily. Providing financial incentives for construction, particularly of affordable housing projects, to make them more financially feasible. And then financial support for buyers and renters. And that's kind of the work of ACDS that we heard from in our last housing meeting. So there are several recommendations that kind of fall into those 4 buckets that are already within Plan 2040 and kind of apply countywide. And we don't need to necessarily, restate those as we draft our region plan for Region 3. But if there are additional, if there's additional nuance or even areas of priority that we want to talk about in our plan, or even just, is it safe to say that as a group, the Stakeholder Advisory Committee would endorse these types of strategies and considering these housing types, in appropriate places in the region. And I wanted to kind of stop talking and let you all, hear from you all on this.
So my first thought is it was just the duplex dwelling. I feel like that building up, like they was talking about in the last meeting, building up will be the wisest thing. And then I feel like it's more cost effective if it's in one unit and there's three units in one, it's gonna be more cost effective because the whole entire building at cost will be less than. Because in any property, like if it's $2,000 or whatever, then if you build up 3 units, you're breaking it down where they're making more profit. It's more profitable. And then also in like the areas that they're talking about, I really think that, of course, staying with Glen Burnie and Queenstown is a part of Glen Burnie, kind of sort of like, because it's right there near Walmart. I don't
Or
know
the
that.
Severn.
It's a part of everything. It's like right there, everything is borderline. Well, basically, it is Severn because Walmart is
Yeah.
Severn. So
Yeah.
basically it is. So, that is definitely a space that's needed because they have a lot of land. But I do know that a lot of people, I know people own that land. I know a lot of people. So that's what's kind of difficult for me too, because I know families that really own that land. So for you to sit there, now you gotta have to go and try to take it or find an easement or poach that land or whatever you're gonna do, but it's gonna be something that's a struggle because of the land being owned by some people, like a lot of people. A family, this is a whole family. So I don't know about Queenstown being an option, and I do agree that you shouldn't take from people because that's their land. They've been on there for a while, but to develop something like that is definitely, I feel like it's cost effective for us to build something like a duplex or triplex or quad, or even a bungalow and doing the HOA makes sense. Everybody participates in that whole area if everybody is on the lease. Everybody can participate in doing it, or doing a co-op. I'm sitting here like, if you have people that own their units, that's something that people will do, and they'll invest more into their property if they do a co-op. I am done.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, that persistent concern about parking, water, sewer, and public facility. I'm thinking that could possibly be addressed and make people more open to these options if you bundle it with, good public transportation, walking, biking nearby. So like you're making it more attractive because you're offering these things that people want in addition. So say, oh, this goes along with that. And I think if it was bundled, that would be more attractive to the public. They might not object so much.
And there were some comments that we got in those open-ended comments where people were saying, primarily near transit areas or the transit lines. Are we comfortable saying that, are we comfortable with these along in these transit areas?
That would make more sense if they're complaining about parking, because now it's walkability. They wanna be able to be accessible for them to walk too, so. Every area that you talk about in Glen Burnie, even Millersville, to an extent, I think you can go up there at bus routes, but then you have to also think about transit as well when you start to go into a more in-depth area that doesn't have transit. So that's one thing you do have to think about, but the main city area, which is Glen Burnie, I definitely think that it'd be feasible.
So we're talking specifically about the duplex options, right?
Any of them?
And these,
Bungalows.
Or the bungalow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you know the people that answered the survey, where they look like, what they live in? And was there like a correlation of, like, where, do you live in a single family home? Not where, but like, or do you live in a
That's a-
townhouse?
That's a good question, and I don't know that we asked that.
Because I feel like, just going back to what they presented on, and the cost of a single family home in Anne Arundel County. That people are saying they don't like this option, but it's not affordable to have single family home for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And this is like the best option for a lot of people. So I was just curious to see what people said, where they live. Maybe they bought their house 30 years ago and, that could be good for them. But people like my age, I'm 30, a lot of people I know are not able to afford a single family house because it's just too expensive.
The average, we do have like the average age, I think, which was probably over 60?
I want to say it was over 50 for sure.
50?
Yeah, survey respondents tend to either be
So, yeah,
high
take it
income.
all with a
Yeah.
grain of salt.
I
Yeah.
read the survey, I'm not.
No, survey too. I was like, no, I was going there. I definitely was, because I definitely care. But that's the whole thing, that trying to attract more people that are in the younger age that do live in the environment. Like I was speaking on, like advertising to let people know that their opinion matters for this, because we definitely need to know what the younger people who are growing and are developing in this area and wanting to settle, how can they live and exist in an area that is so expensive? I don't think they can. I mean, you have to do something that will downsize, and what makes sense is this, because you're not, even them teeny houses, any tiny houses, the little tiny houses that can go in one unit, that's affordable too, because then, one or two people can stay in there.
Go ahead.
You had said that there was 4 things: the development review process, the financial incentives for developers,
Developers, it's okay.
buyers. I missed the first one.
Oh, changes to the county code that will actually permit these, and I think that's a key question is, where are we going to allow for duplexes and triplexes and cottage courtyards and quadplexes and all of that? And if you ask me to say off the top of my head what zoning categories allow this, I'm not gonna be able to answer that question off the top.
Most station almost say, no,
But
but seriously, but yeah, I mean, like, it's so many areas that already have housing, and even if it's single family, like, people are selling houses, like, you can also make that duplex, something that can.
Yeah. Well, and there is some concern among, some single family residential neighborhoods are gonna have a lot of heartburn with the idea of, if there's a vacant lot that you would expect one single family home to go on, if it suddenly becomes a duplex or a triplex, there can be heartburn about that, and I understand that. Is there less heartburn if there are design guidelines that make sure that duplex looks exactly like or very similar to the other homes?
But I also want to say there's a lot of families that are living on top of each other, so it's still like the same concept. So if you think about it and you go to different communities, it's like maybe 4 families in one house, or 3 families in one house, or 2 families in one house. So you actually are entertaining the same idea, but without them having the actual zoning and actually having a house built like that.
Well,
And keep track of schools.
Exactly,
Well,
that's true.
what you're seeing is, it's one family in the house, but 3 generations.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's the other issues that's.
Or just
Welcome to the
family
21st century.
cousins.
But no, and it can be cousins or
Yeah.
anybody, because I've seen it.
Right.
I mean, I've literally, and I've literally seen people who, even if a family aunt come and stay, and they stay, and then, sisters, brothers, they all together, and they're trying to afford living out here because of how expensive it is. There's no places that you can just really say, well, I need 2, 3 bedroom, and you're gonna pay like a good 1,500. No, you're gonna probably pay about 25 to 28, like, it depends.
Now, we were thinking, when you're talking about these designs, are they for rent or for sale? I mean, like, are you thinking of building them for people to buy, or for people to rent?
I'm not.
Okay,
Yeah.
and not you
I'm not
particularly, but just in
specifying.
general, just in general, because I also think that, plays into what people sometimes feel comfortable with and not comfortable with.
Cause that's the other
Renters
thing
versus
is,
buyers.
I'm sorry, you have your hand.
Oh, sorry.
She said,
So
I'll make my point.
I just kind of want to refocus a tiny bit, because I know we all know that the housing is a problem. So I want to focus, and I think we need to, on how the SAC can change things to make it better. So when we're talking about the changes to the code, the development review process, can we put forward recommendations to the council based on everything here towards that? Or are we specifically like, this plot of land is now R5?
I think, so it may be helpful to look at, we're not gonna be able to do all this tonight, but like I mentioned, we have a number of, we probably have 10 or 12 recommendations that are already countywide and apply countywide, in Plan 2040, and they're listed out here kind of in those 4 buckets that I was talking about. So we don't necessarily need to repeat those. I think it's a question more of like, do we endorse as an SAC, this idea of additional, pushing some of those strategies that already exist, and endorsing those and moving forward on things like code updates to kind of, enable the construction of quadplexes and,
Are these,
And are there?
these are the same?
that's volume 2. So this is volume 1, that's volume 2 of this. And I just brought these as references, but I can send out to you all links to this plan on our, website. You were gonna say
I was just
something.
gonna say, so yeah, for like our Region 7, for example, a lot of our strategies, because a lot of these have like, development reviews, stuff like that, it's not really just for Region 3, right? It's like, this needs to be updated for the whole county. So a lot of our housing strategies ended up being, were already in, well, they were building off of what was in Plan 2040, but also they were countywide in the Region 7 plan. So we don't necessarily need to replicate those, but if there is anything that's specific to this region, like we think missing middle is very appropriate for Glen Burnie, and we want to encourage it to the maximum extent possible. That's like what we want to hear, because
So the overall.
it's kind of like anything geographically specific that we want to target, or anything that's not already in these, larger countywide strategies. That's what we want to focus on.
And real quick to Phil raised his hand in the Zoom.
Oh, good.
I was trying to,
Thank you.
yeah, no worries. I wouldn't miss it too long. I saw it now, but I was trying to promote him to panelist, but I think he's still in the,
Oh, I thought I
I
promoted
thought
you.
you did too.
I think, I don't know, like if he, but I think I can allow him to talk. You can, here, Philip, you can, you're able to speak now for the Zoom. I'm not sure if you got our panelists invitation either, but that'll allow you to,
He's there.
okay, cool. I think it worked over now.
What I'd like to say is that we have an opportunity for over the next 20 years to change the mindset of people. Now, a lot of people talk about they don't want this development next door to them. They don't want that development next door to them, because as a property owner, you don't want an apartment complex to a single family unit that you feel will devalue your property. However, the realities are that in today's world, we have to have more space for the population that's there. And that population does not want to have land. They want to be able to come home after work or when they're finished and go enjoy themselves and recreate, or to spend time with their family members. It is true that the majority of Region 1 is single-family homes, whether they be townhouses or single-family homes. And I heard the comment that, well, there are more than one generation living in a house. Well, the development next door to me, there's an 8-bedroom house with 8.5 baths in it. The cost of the house is $1.2 million. And there's two generations living in the house currently, I believe. But the realities are that when Arundel Forest was put up, there was no thoughts about putting in, there was thoughts about putting in townhomes, condominiums, and single-family homes in the same community. However, as the community, as the development went forward, they built more single-family homes than they built townhouses and condominiums. Now, they're pricey condominiums. However, it gives people an option. Most development nowadays do not give folks an option at all. And the one developer that was on earlier that was talking about having 6 units in one plot, in one lot. From our perspective, that's a smart move, because the day earlier I had a meeting with the Commission on Disability Issues. And for people with disabilities, there is an issue that they can't find affordable housing. And so for those folks, we have to look out for everyone, not just those who are able-bodied. And the able-bodied will always be able to buy a house if they really want to buy one. But there's a lot of people that say they want to buy a house, but they don't make any effort to really go out and buy that home. However, there are people who are disabled who, by misfortune or through birth cannot change their outlook on, they can't change their position in life. They're going to be disabled the rest of their life. And all of us are only 1 second away from being disabled. You never know what's going to happen the next second over. So we're living in homes currently, or we're saying we want houses for people that are affordable, but there are not enough homes to do that. I'm not going to sit on there and stump for homes for people with disabilities, but I will say there's a small percentage of homes that are built in this county that can handle a person with a disability. Because number one, they don't meet the current code, and the current code is constantly changing to make it more accessible for people with disabilities. And the folks from the Disability Commission are talking about this constantly, that they can't find housing. So being a member of that committee, I'm trying to espouse some of the things that I'm hearing from them also. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you.
I'm afraid to drive home because I'm only 1 second away from being disabled.
So I do wanna say this, going back to what she was saying about, buying or renting, I really feel like that even if we do like a duplex, that'd be an option too, if you give it to a person who wants to have a condominium type lifestyle, which is a duplex or, quad, and they'll be able to also have the option to buy, if that's something that, or a long-term living, you know what I'm saying, that can go along with the leasing or capabilities of them being able to be there, or even generational pass down, like, I don't know, it's concepts that you can go with to have more people more stable, because that's another thing that people look for, stability.
So I mean, the other thing is it sounds like you're kind of talking about it, is almost you have rent control put onto some of these units.
Yeah, that can be also like that because of course, well, that would be the thought process period, because the whole entire county got enough houses that's high end that you can't even afford half the time. So you do want rent controlled units, you do want people that have, being able to develop stability where they can say that this is a long-term decision to stay here or live, nothing that can be forcible out, like you want stuff that's accessible to the people that really it's some needs that need to be met, and so, yes, absolutely.
My opinion is for the Glen Burnie, an overlay or something, that we need obtainable housing, we need more housing. Controls aren't good as far as that goes. You want people to be able to buy, if they like. So to take, Patrick said something about, we got a lot next door and you put a duplex or a triplex or something, the neighbor next door gets all upset because they got a single family. Well, there needs to be mechanisms in the code through fire and everything that allows you to convert that house next door that you own because of the triplex that went in to a triplex. And then you can either sell it because it's worth more and move somewhere else. But you're giving more opportunities to more people to have attainable housing. Then if you throw a condominium element in to the duplexes and the triplexes. I went through I had to go through all kind of zoning in Brooklyn to take a lot. I could easily put an under and over apartment building on it. But I had to go through variance processes to make it a side-by-side duplex, sellable to two people. I made it through, but it took a lot of time and effort and expense. And then the water and sewer and all the expenses to get there make it, very unaffordable for a developer to do. So the mechanisms, if you want, and especially in the town center area and the heart of Glen Burnie, to have a lot of the older houses, there's so many apartment buildings in Glen Burnie that people don't realize. The old looking single family houses, go by it. It was in the missing middle. They're all got 3 and 4 electric meters.
Yeah.
But to be able to sell those like they did, look at Ocean City. They were all fourplexes on a street that an individual owner, Ocean City, Maryland, individual owner owned. They're all condominiums now. And they're 50-year-old houses. So whatever they did with their zoning code allowed those 50-year-old fourplexes to become condominiums. So instead of selling for $850,000 to one investor, I think they were going for $350 For four,
piece,
yeah, a
right, yeah,
piece.
yeah.
So but the problem is the expense for health, life and safety. You know, what do you need to do to convert them to condominiums?
And back to what Alyssa said too, on what can the SAC do, seemed like the presenters tonight were talking a lot about the county process. And everyone here is saying that we need housing in Anne Arundel County, which we need development of housing. But the development process in Anne Arundel County does not feel like they want to help us get there. The process is really hard to get through.
Yeah.
There's a lot of nuances there's not a lot of common sense in the development review process. And I think we're following all these codes and legislation and stuff just to do it. It seems like there isn't a lot of like rhyme or reason. So what can the SAC do? I mean, make the development review process better is something I think we should recommend. And I don't have the exact like verbiage of what I think that would be, but like the permit fees being something like having $1 million in permit fees for that project. What are those like actually paying for?
Costs $40,000 to pick up a permit for a single family home.
Yes, yeah.
And when you're in Glen Burnie and it only sell like, it's kind of a shame, you know, and it's a shame for the buyers. $500,000 for a 2,000 square foot, 1-car garage house in Ferndale. Okay, guy paid $40,000 in permit fees to pick that up. And so he has to get $500,000 due to expenses.
Yeah.
And because of the lack of demand, lack of supply, the buyers are paying.
Right.
But it's, and we're a particular area that we're, you know, looking over and giving our input on. That's a little bit different than a lot of parts of the county. Because we have a large older housing stock
Right.
that is ready for, along with the retail, for renovation, revitalization.
Yeah.
So, you know, overlays and different things we could do to make things easier, but still stay, you know, with health and safety.
And compliance there.
And compliance, I mean, to be able to do that in some of the older housing in like the ADU bill.
Yeah.
Okay, split foyers a dime a dozen all over Glen Burnie, okay? You know, you can't, because most of them are 1,000 square feet.
Right.
You can only put a 500 square foot apartment in the basement.
Right.
An ADU in the basement, if I'm correct, at 50% of the first floor gross living area would be 500 square feet. Well, if you took split foyers makes great duplexes.
Right.
Because their windows are half out of the ground.
Right.
So it's not like living in a basement. So to be able to have, you know, 1,000 square foot split foyer with a 1,000 square foot basement, to have 2 1,000 square foot units is a nice 2-bedroom, 1 or 2 bath unit. Most of them have room for 2 to 4 parking spots on the lot anyway, in the older split foyers. So, I mean, I don't know, I just think the more population we get in our region, yes, traffic, but in Glen Burnie, because it is transit and, you know, transportation, it does have walkability, is good for what we're trying to, and what I think we're trying to accomplish.
So in terms
And we're different because we're the last town center that is a mess.
Right.
And you heard Eric, he said that he doesn't think of 7409 in Glen Burnie, you can go vertical to a big complex like they did at Town Center in Annapolis.
Right.
It's 13 acres, right in walkable, right to the light rail and to Town Center. But he said the numbers don't seem to work for them. Maybe a different developer for a project there that would bring more housing.
Right.
So if our recommendations are then to support policies that encourage the development of increased housing of multiple types, including duplexes and middle class and did you say middle class? Missing middle. Like various types without like, as I said, have free flowing in my mind as possible. So if something is zoned in a particular way today, but a developer comes in and say, I could put a townhouse there, or I can put a series of townhouses or a small apartment building there. the process to change that should be as nimble as possible. Because I think a lot of this is gonna be reactionary on the economics part.
You have to be careful, it's like goes both ways, you don't want
Right.
people just coming and rezoning stuff, like, it's part of, it should be part of like a plan,
Right.
what we're trying to
Comprehensive
create,
plan.
yeah.
And this, well, that's precisely where I was gonna go next, because that is a key piece of what you all are gonna be doing, and we're gonna start on this with our next month's meeting. Actually looking at zoning, and when Karen talked about, there's a supply problem in terms of land, it's part of that is because of the zoning that only allows for X number of units per acre. And we'll talk more about that, but it is something to keep in mind as we start to have these land use and zoning discussions starting next month.
So, I mean, recently, I've, I've had to spend more and more time in the Davidsonville area.
Mhm.
Crownsville, Davidsonville area. There's a lot of basically Region 3, we're full, we're done. But in that region, there are acres of open
There are.
property.
And it was,
It's designed that way.
Yeah.
There's no water in,
It's a-
there's no water in.
Oh,
the
yeah.
If you go below 214, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And that's really not, it's our county because we're concerned.
Right.
But we should stay up here in Region 3 where we
Okay.
can put our input in.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna be Davidsonville.
Yeah.
Definitely not. We don't need nothing.
can we, let's see, it's 7:39. I want to pivot really quickly and talk about, or at least get you thinking a little bit about some non-residential things, kind of what Eric was talking about. Can you go to the next slide real quick? I'm gonna race through this because I don't want to be the one talking. But going back to that survey that we put out there, I'll just say very quickly, there was strong support for these first 5 economic strategies that we put out. These didn't have as much to do with land use. I will say, except for the last one, there was some concern with, I think the idea of, that one only achieved 46% agreement, so not even half of the respondents agreed with that last, that 5th statement there. I think there was some skepticism about using public money and concessions in the private sector and that sort of thing. And also making sure that green spaces are not sacrificed in development of that nature. If you'll go to the next slide.
Question about that last one that you have to concern about, is that saying that you would turn the property over to the developers, or
Potentially, yeah, or maybe a public-private partnership. It could be structured in
a long-term
different
lease,
ways.
say?
Like
Potentially, yeah.
funding or something for it.
So where do community land grant programs come into this? Is there any I know that they're all throughout Baltimore and Baltimore County, to help with some of the lower income housing that's needed there. Is there a possibility of something like that within the region to be able to say, if you have, a community land grant organization to turn some of those publicly owned properties over to, so that the land grant organization then works with the public, with the redeveloper, that lowers both costs?
I feel like we talked about that in the first round, and I don't remember what, we brought this up to, our colleagues at ACDS. Let me pursue that and.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to encourage zoning in a specific area to facilitate that, but if their issue is the cost of the land. And community land grant programs, speaking to what you were saying, Michelle, earlier, like having the community have a stake in the area.
I know one of our strategies was like looking at county-owned properties that could be sort of, donated for that purpose, for
Yeah.
affordable housing, to sort of say, okay, we'll give you this land if you'll develop on it, affordable housing or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was one of our strategies.
And I can understand the concern with giving the land to a for-profit private developer, because they'll say, yeah, I'm gonna do great things in this land, and in 10 years, turn around
Be selfish.
and resell it, right?
Yeah.
That's the nature of business.
That's why
Right.
you had contracts that definitely go along with the use of what we need it for, right? And continue, like, no matter what time frame it is.
Yeah.
And then there were 5 other economic strategies. These are a lot of words here. These were put out and just to get reaction from members of the public. These all focused on those big areas of economic energy that we had talked about in our last economic development meeting. So, you know, the Marley Station Mall, Cromwell area, Brandon Shores, and also about Glen Burnie Town Center. And all of this had strong support from the public. So I won't dwell on those now, but I do want to get your thoughts on some other potentially commercial areas of the region. Plan 2040, and this is the reason that I put these books out. We'll talk more about this next time, but they did designate a couple of village centers in the region. One was at why don't we go ahead and skip to the next slide, because I kind of want to get people thinking geographically about these two areas. So there were two village centers that were designated in our region. This one at Donaldson Avenue, Telegraph Road. It's kind of where, so you have the park area just to the north. There's some new development that is going into this area. But the designation as a village center from Plan 2040, it calls for targeted development to retrofit these areas with a village character, mixed use development patterns, those kind of things, human oriented development, less auto dominant kind of development, and integrated residential uses. And we're starting to get some of that. We do have several recent developments in this area that you all have seen, the townhomes that have gone up very recently. There's the Primrose School that's going in. But we're also there are a couple of car washes that have come through and have been approved for that area. And then there are a couple of small retail buildings. So one of my questions to you all is this valuable to retain this area as a village center designation for the Severn area? I can remember during Plan 2040, when we talked about this, we kind of looked at the Severn area broadly and thought there's not really like a commercial node that is kind of the civic center of this area. Or I shouldn't say civic, but commercial kind of central area for Severn. And it seemed like this could potentially be with the asset of the elementary school right there, the park.
Where's the elementary school? On the left,
Yeah.
I see.
And a second school going in.
Would it be like the Odenton, like, you know how Odenton Town Center has like
So
a
this is
certain.
Severn Danza Park here.
Right.
Here's the,
Royal Farm.
there's the new townhouses and the.
Where's the new
Severn
school?
Elementary School over here.
where's the new school? That's what.
Yeah, where's this new school you're talking about?
Right there. Yeah.
Oh, that's why they're clearing that. I thought they were putting more.
Really?
houses.
they're just
They put houses over there
rebuilding.
too.
Wait,
They were
what
putting
school
houses.
is that?
We're doing a
So
school
Severn,
next
isn't that Severn Elementary next to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Severn Elementary, so there's gonna be a new school next to Severn Elementary.
kind
It's gonna be a private.
Private.
Primrose?
Primrose.
Oh, it's like a little, it's a little
Charter school?
Montessori, no, it's like a daycare through kindergarten. Oh, like a Goddard school,
Yes.
like a young school.
We do need
By the
that.
way,
Yeah.
is this? They look
Oh.
like just the townhouses?
Yeah, they just built those.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
across the street, right across the street.
Yeah, what are, I mean, cause they look.
They look
weird.
out of
I mean,
place.
I haven't looked at them that close, but I mean, they look almost like they were built like as, professional, buildings, yeah, where like a dentist or a doctor would have their office, but.
Those townhouses look out of place, but if,
Yeah.
if the area
Yeah.
goes in that direction,
Yeah.
then they're, ahead of their time.
I think it would be nice to build something.
I just wanted to know what the requirements are for a village center, like
Right.
Odenton Town Center has like a whole master plan you have to follow.
There's supposed to be a sector plan process, Plan 2040. Can you go back one slide,
Yeah.
please? And so that top thing is how it's defined in Plan 2040. And you'll see that at the very end, it's implemented by a village sector plan.
Okay.
So with that designation, it would trigger supposedly a planning effort to develop a little sector plan for that area and start to kind of envision our master plan in a concept form.
I mean, I think it's a good,
For that area.
right, to put some.
Geographically, it's a good area,
Geographic-
because
mean, but
it's
what?
crossroads of, but if you put something like, is it impossible to put something like what they have over in Laurel Town Center?
I mean, yeah, I've been to every one of DeVito's town centers that he had listed up there, and they are all beautiful, but I don't know, like,
If that's a piece of
if that area, like, it just seems like the space doesn't seem.
It doesn't, cause you said to what they're asking, for,
Spaces, though.
it doesn't make sense. To me, it doesn't make sense.
And especially if
Yeah.
they're talking about a bunch of car washes and like, I mean, I guess I don't see a vision, or are we
Because unless you're
supposed to
talking
come up
about
with?
moving some of the
It's
houses.
not a vision at this point.
Okay.
It's a designation in Plan 2040, but there hasn't been a sector plan at this point.
Yeah.
And it's, yeah,
And just to be clear, a sector plan is not, so what he was referring to with a master plan, that's,
Right.
you know, one developer who owns all the land and he's dreaming it all up.
Okay,
A sector
okay.
plan is more of, we are the public, what do we want? We want community input, how can we change zoning to sort of get what we want from developers? Like what do we want to encourage developers to build here? How can we facilitate the development to happen? So it's not one developer coming in and deciding what it should be. It's a sector plan is more a specific community plan for that little
like that,
area.
yeah.
Sort of trying to get at how can we encourage a certain type of development here?
And it also doesn't, just to add as well, it doesn't also mean just cause, you know, we have more prominent, looking at the town centers, like with Odenton and with Pearl and Glen Burnie a bit too, but it doesn't have to mean like it has to look like that. Like village
Right.
centers are more supposed to be from Plan 2040, more like shaped for what the community is looking for that specific
Accessible.
area. It doesn't mean that every village center, and it's not gonna look, there's different kinds of village centers within the county as well. I don't know if you guys know off the top of your head. which
Honestly,
one.
the little shopping center that's there, that has like the cleaners there.
Yeah.
And that's,
It's gotta go, I know, but the
Yeah,
thing
that's
is
what I
that
was-
Carlson's Donuts is like
It's-
a very popular spot that
It's
people
still right,
go
exactly.
to. But it just needs to be like
Maybe looking like.
having a Primrose there, that's kind of I don't know the right word to use, but that's a very nice center, like it's not gonna be cheap to send your child there for daycare, right? So I feel like right now there's a McDonald's, it's gonna be a Primrose, a Royal Farms, and some car washes and a gas station, like where when people are picking up their kids, where are they gonna stop to get something to
Yeah, pretty
eat?
soon they're
Or
gonna
like a
put
grocery
Arundel
store,
there.
like they need, I like the idea, I think the area could be developed nicely into something like a little village center, I guess it just means, I
I think it
But
would
are
be
you
like
trying
good
to
for, go ahead.
Are you trying to get more commercial? Because it was, like where the townhouses were that he just pointed out, that was C2. And they put townhouses there. And they must have got a waiver to commercial unless there's another pad site that they're gonna do the commercial later. I haven't been out there lately. But that's an issue, but now you're getting down into flat out zoning
Right.
of the designations. So, I mean, what do you gotta figure out, we have to help, like, if you want walkability, you need everything, like, you
Right.
need, like, I'm familiar with like Bay Hill Shopping Center, it's got everything, and Cape Sinclair Shopping Center, these
Yeah.
are down in Severna Park, or, Arnold,
I like
Annapolis.
that.
But you don't have to leave Cape Sinclair to get everything you want.
Yeah.
You can go there and it's a very popular destination for people from DC to have weekend homes there. Because they have a dry cleaner, they have restaurants, they got Dunkin' Donuts, they got a card shop, they got a grocery store. I mean, they got, so to me, there's nothing to walk to there. I mean, there's nothing to, so how do you put an overlay? And this is where the county, if we would all say, okay, we need, for that area, you got plenty, and you guys live, I mean, more of you live out in Severn, I'm familiar with it. But you don't need any more housing in Severn.
No,
I
not
mean,
at
you
all.
could use more, and you could use obtainable housing, which is
Affordable.
there's a difference.
Right.
Alright, so we're not talking affordable housing with government grants and all, but obtainable. You need housing that people can buy at $350,000.
Right, exactly.
Even if it's only a 2-bedroom garden condo that they have all over Odenton,
Right.
okay, that we're not built, that nobody's built anymore.
Right.
So if you designate that area to not, and like to have it more as what you want, what we want for walkability, which does not need to be a bunch of I mean, it has to be mixed, it can be mixed
Mixed
use
use,
with
yeah.
houses above them, but you
Right.
gotta have the demand
Right.
for the shopping. Cause just north on 170 at the exit ramp, that little mixed use
Yeah.
did not really, I've
So where
never.
the doctor's office at? On the other
Yeah,
side?
it's like, when you see
Yeah.
it right when you come off
Yeah, on the
100
right.
on your right hand
Okay,
side.
yeah,
and
the
look,
doctor's
it's on
office.
7.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't even know what's in there, I've never stopped there,
Yeah.
but I've been in there because of my business there's houses, there's townhouses
Right.
with a mixed use of commercial in there. But the commercial is more like offices and
Yeah.
not really, it didn't really take off because it was just one person trying to do one 10-acre piece.
Right, it was.
And you need to have, we don't have, in Anne Arundel County, it's great, we're an older, great county. We're not Columbia, we never will be.
Never.
We're not,
Not both
with,
of them.
with the 2040 plan, we can at least have zoning to coordinate with the people, what we all want to see in these little village centers, where you cannot leave that area. You got, everybody lives out there, could just go there and go to their cars and walk around and do stuff.
Yeah.
And have all their shopping right there and entertainment without going out to Arundel Mills. I mean,
You
'cause-
know where, 170, on 175, right, all I know is Lido's over there. Is Lido still over there? But anyway. Yeah, well, but right across the street, like
Food
everything.
line, yeah.
Yeah, like how that is set up would definitely be
Yeah.
example of what could be right here.
Yeah.
Because it's still housing right there, but there's a lot of development where they have retail and you can go and get your Starbucks
Yeah.
and get something to eat and shop, cause they got a
And
grocery
shop.
store right there, and they have the,
They have big lots there.
yes,
I mean,
exactly.
and I think it's the type of place, I don't know about walkability, but I think it's like gonna be like, people are gonna be driving to pick up their kids from school, pick up their kids from daycare, get on
The
100 right
convenience, right.
there. Or go toward 97 to be able to stop, go to the grocery store, or pick up dinner someplace, and like,
Yeah.
that's the type of
The
thing I
idea of
see, but.
walkability around Fort Meade or around NSA is different though, because that place, I live right around there. That shopping center gets a lot of traffic because of the people coming to Fort Meade and
Right.
and from Fort Meade,
Yeah.
right?
But even like on, what's that, 170, I think that, it's not 170, it wasn't, whatever that one, they right there. Yeah, but that's a lot of, it's a lot of traffic,
mean,
like,
it's
it's
backed
ongoing.
up.
I mean, when it's ridiculous, you can't even get through the light that's Reach Road, and like, you're sitting there for a long time,
For a
it's
long
always
time.
backed up to the exit, so,
Right.
what I'm saying, there is definitely,
There's enough
I-
traffic on that road.
yes,
too.
it's definitely enough
But
to
if you take
develop
the same
something.
approach and put a smaller type of area there, I don't know that it needs to be what I'm thinking of, at least when I think of walkability, right?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get out my car and go from one store to the next, right? I'm gonna stop there in
Drive
transit
up,
from a
pick it up.
place
Yeah,
and going somewhere else.
Yeah.
I think it could be appropriate for us, like a strip shopping center for people to drive their cars in, come get stuff, but
Yeah.
it's not really an area where you see it being super walkable.
No.
right, like with connecting trails and let's walk from our townhouse to no, I say it's like a drive on, pick up the kids from school, go to the strip. Pick up.
But the reason why I think that it would kind of have to go together because of the football field and all the activities is right there, because everybody's going back and forth. When I say literally from a football game, they're going to Royal Farms. They're going back around that corner, wherever they want, they will walk. I mean, I've seen it. They walk and it's populated a lot when they're playing football right there. So
That's
I
because
feel
there's
like.
no other options.
There's
though.
nothing out there but Royal Farms.
Yeah, but
I know.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
if there is, then you have to make it walkable. You know,
Yeah.
you wanna make it walkable, because they do have activities that they do host there a lot.
Oh, trust me.
Yeah, right.
My husband's coaching
So we're
staff
back to it.
basketball right now,
Right.
as we speak.
Yeah, so the town, it would be a nice little area for like a town center concept, but it's just like, you know, dumbing it down a little bit enough where as though
You're right.
people can just walk up, cause
You're right.
make a path to the Severn field.
To the park, and
Yeah,
they're
and then-
expanding that
exactly,
field.
yeah,
So, yeah, I
exactly.
didn't even think, I mean, that is true, like on
Yeah.
the weekends when all the games are
Kids,
being
yeah, and they're
played.
gonna get a lot of more, retail is definitely gonna get enough people coming, clientele to come in.
Well,
Definitely.
especially since Severn Dances, they added 34 acres.
expanding. Yeah.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, like, so that's like no way.
But did that area get left behind because of what happened up the, because it's not very far to go up the street to the Chick-fil-A, everything
Yeah.
at 97.
Right.
So that intersection, because they're all small lots and all,
Mhm.
and individual owners, it got left behind.
Yeah.
because of everything up at Coles and.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
everything is all, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But some small
So that is your, like, your little village area. to a
Right.
degree.
But since they built that area, they've built, like in the years since then, the residential neighborhood has grown, like Arundel Forest wasn't there, and like all of these other little, the neighborhood at Boyer's Farm, I know my neighborhood, a lot of communities weren't built yet. So I feel like, I don't know.
And also just to pose a quick pivot, were there, I mean, this is an area that's obviously been designated by Plan 2040 as a village center within Severn, but are there other areas that, you know, maybe were overlooked or that would be even a better, like,
Well, I
more?
mean, we've said it several times, like, the whole, strip along, 175 and, off Fort Meade, I mean, there's.
Yeah,
But listen,
Yeah.
There's multiple owners, I
Yeah,
definitely know that.
we're kind of the thing, we're kind of stuck, I don't know what you can do about it.
No, you definitely can't, like, when I tell you that whole strip of barbershops, and I know the owner, and like literally them closing down and him trying to remodel and doing what he's doing over there, it's a whole, it's a different concept. It's a lot that goes along with, like he said, permits and everything that goes along, it's a lot. So you gotta figure out a good space that doesn't have as much zoning issues, or have a way that we can kind of put something there that doesn't have a whole bunch that needs to be done. There's not much in Region 3, to be quite honest, because it's populated, we're very populated.
Can you go
Yeah.
back to the previous for just 1 second? Does anybody else see a stegosaurus there?
It's like-
Now that you say it, just.
Right.
Okay.
There was one other village center, this is the Arundel area.
Oh, don't do that.
Yeah, right, so, and this one I think has some kind of different potential because it is really, closely surrounded by much denser, still single family housing, but it's a little bit more dense neighborhood. You've got the B&A trail going through there, the library across the street, we're gonna get a new library there
Yay.
shortly, and I don't know how easy it's gonna be to cross that road. on foot
Where's the
ever.
library gonna be there? Can you point
It's
out?
across the street, right?
Yeah, I think it's the same.
Oh, Arundel
same
Mall,
site,
yeah.
so.
Is
It's the same as Glen Burnie High School side.
Is it, I think.
That's it.
right?
yeah,
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 that's
that's
it.
the library.
Yeah.
It's gonna be directly
They
across. the street.
renovated this, but it seems like, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, it just never took off. I mean, it's like, it's okay, but
It's constant because Missions is there and the steakhouse is there, and then
Yeah.
they do bank there. I mean, then they then turned the grocery store, I think, 2 times into two different grocery stores. Then they got the furniture store, and then they still got the gym. And I'm sitting here thinking like, it's definitely a lot of space that can be used, or it can be transitioned. Mixed use definitely for that is definitely the case, because walkability and everything is right there.
Didn't
Everything.
that
is
get the
there.
new overlay though? Didn't that just go through last year? Didn't?
That already has the overlay.
That has the overlay for town center or for
Village
village.
center, yeah.
Right, so yeah, this is the village center. This one is also in the commercial revitalization area, and did we talk about that, or I feel like that got skipped in our
Yes.
economic development meeting, but there is a program, and all of these hatched areas, they're primarily in Glen Burnie, so Marley Station Mall with Glen Burnie Town Center and up and down Crane Highway and Route 2. There's a commercial revitalization program that allows for kind of facade grants and revitalization programs and small business grants kind of targeted to those areas. And this is within that area as well. Now, the Severn one is not. But that might be something that's appropriate for there potentially.
I know that in terms of walking, I stop by Lidl's every once in a while that's there. And there are a lot of people that come from the neighborhoods across the street with their little shopping carts and shop at Lidl's and then walk back. So they are interested, there is like already a walking culture there.
It really is. The whole area is a walking culture, and because the bike trail is right there, but 7-Eleven, everybody walks to 7-Eleven. The donut shop, the school is right there, like the post office, everything is right, I swear, everything is in walking.
What are they gonna do with Sunset?
Listen, they need to do,
It's a building on Crane Highway.
Sorry.
Listen, you got me now thinking about the building on Crane Highway. It's a brown building. I don't know if the county owns the building. You know, building I'm talking about, it's right across from like, Friendly's.
There's the social security office too, that's there. You're talking about that?
It's right next to the, to the funeral home. It's on the right side if you're going down
It's
towards
next to
the.
Evergreen Jeans.
Yes,
That's under, I think that's under, something's going on with that.
yes, I
I
think
think
somebody's
somebody's working on that.
Yeah, because
I
I
mean,
was
all the
like,
windows are busted out.
yes, and I was like, well, it's been sitting there and that's another building
It's
that
the
I
old
was thinking
Stephanie
about.
building.
Yes, it is.
I think I heard somebody's trying to do something with that. I don't know
Because it's
what.
been sitting there for about 10, 15 years. I
Oh,
swear it's been there and nobody's been in there and now literally.
That's probably the whole Glen Burnie Improvement Association should be on that. I'm sorry, did I say that?
Cause they're really like, it's a whole nother situation with them too.
I'm sorry.
I try to get my mind together when I talk to them. They really do. It's like development is, they really make it hard. They do.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry too. I just talked to them and they made me mad. It was so, it was like, no.
We're right at, 8 o'clock right now. We have a couple of other things that we want to get to.
Okay.
We're gonna get back into this, much deeper next month. So come ready with, keep thinking about some of this stuff, going forward. But I was gonna let Desiree and the subcommittee talk about a vision statement for the area.
Yeah, so we met, as a subcommittee, three of us or I guess three of the SAC members and then us. So it's Joanne, Jason and Sarah, who gave some input on a draft vision statement. So, we wanted to fill you guys in on what we came up with and see if you sort of approve, if there's anything glaring that you disagree with or anything glaring that's missing or.
What is a vision statement?
Yeah, so the vision statement sort of directs what we want to be as a community, you know, in the after the lifespan of the 20-year horizon. So what do we envision for our community, 20 years out? And so you really want to sort of talk as if you've achieved those goals. So.
And ultimately, the strategies and recommendations will be, put together with a goal of implementing that vision for the region.
So it's kind of the highest level, most broad statement of the plan. We usually include it kind of at the beginning of the planning document, like for Plan 2040, we had it here. And then these were kind of the themes within that, to achieve that vision. So,
It might be worth reading it because some
Yeah,
people
sure, we
are
can do it.
processing it for the first time.
okay, so Region 3 is an adaptive community network which balances the economic, social, and environmental needs of the residents. All people can attain desirable housing, earn a decent living, and enjoy a healthy natural environment with diverse opportunities for education, recreation, entertainment, and social engagement. Businesses serve the community and enrich its network of goods and services. Convenient, affordable public transportation and safe biking and walking paths are integral modes of transportation, offering green options to mitigate the effects of climate change. Plans for development are transparent to the public with opportunities for public engagement. Residents are happy to live here and feel a sense of belonging to the larger community.
sounds good.
So, you know,
Is it
it,
long?
I
It
don't
is
know, it
long,
seems
it's
really
really
long.
long, so then to me, I feel like it's very long. It is not to the point, I mean, when I look at the mission or vision statement, it's just to the point, it's just so much that y'all said. I understand the first the first line told me everything, I don't even need to talk about anything else, cause it just tells me that y'all balancing economic, social, and environmental needs to, yeah, but everything else is just a lie. I mean, the read.
I mean, I agree with Michelle. I mean, it does need, you need to boil it down a bit, and you're right, your first line there, it does sum up everything, and you could either do one or two things. One, cut the rest of it, or two, break it down so where you can have like essentially like three bullet points
Right.
of what you're trying to say, as opposed to,
That's fine.
the.
I see it as like the first one is encompassing, it was the intent.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is a way of fleshing it out. Can you see it? Helping you see it. So that you're more very specific about what you mean. Because
Be more
otherwise, that
detailed
first
oriented.
sentence could mean a lot of things to different people, but the first sentence was developed with the view that it would be the all encompassing, goal, and then the rest is just fleshing it out. So this is what we mean by that.
Well, so if you did a vision, like for me doing a business plan, if I did a vision, a mission statement, it's just gonna be to the point, and then everything else throughout the book will tell you. But I'm just saying from that.
Well, the purpose of this one is, I would think is a little bit different though. Because business plan goes towards like, it's economic gains for the business, right?
Right.
Economic gains is one aspect of this, which is why it's longer. Because if it was focusing on making profit, then yes, you would have a short to the point business plan. I think, unless we are, I don't think we should shorten it for the sake of shortening.
No, I just think that it should be more precise words that just give you the exact meaning of what you're saying, because I think that you really detailed. I just think that a vision statement is not as detailed that you can really just put specific words that will definitely give you the same answers. I don't know. I just think it's real long. I really got lost in at one point in time, I just really stopped reading. Like, okay, and that's just being honest, because I got the concept at the beginning, but then everything else is just a lot of fillers.
You're welcome
so-
to write your own vision statement.
So boil it down a little bit.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, it's decent. I think it's definitely effective. It tells you information. I mean, you're very informative with it. I definitely do.
If you boil it down, it could end up to be a boilerplate. That's kind of vision statement.
Yeah, I
So-
think, I think there's, it's kind of either or. Yeah, everybody can have their preference on whether you want a more lengthy vision statement with, actionable, like, we're addressing housing, we're addressing the environment, we're addressing businesses, we're addressing all of that, and then, or you could make it just more simple, one sentence, and so it's kind of up to you guys, whether you want to make it
Yeah.
more comprehensive, or whether you want to keep it short and simple and.
What have other regions done?
So I can read you, like, Plan 2040 was on the shorter side, Region 7, here, let me show you Region 7's, I have it.
While you're pulling that up, I can say, going back to the small area plans, the Glen Burnie plan had an entire page. It was like 3 times that length. The South County plan said keep South County rural, period.
To the point.
It's kind of range.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense.
Here.
Make people informed.
The only word I kind of question on there is integral.
I was thinking.
On the walking, I don't want walking to be like
Integral,
integral.
no, right?
I don't know. If you wanna,
Where's the?
whatever you
I need
think
it
about it.
Go back to it and look at
I
it.
need to.
Honestly, okay, so after the last, I don't know,
I think
probably
about
the
what's a lot
January
better.
meeting, when we were talking about, about how we're gonna lay things out, they're talking about having bike paths and sidewalks and everything. When I brought it up to my youngsters, they're like, nobody wants that crap. Nobody's gonna use it.
But see, that's like, you don't know who's gonna be it, so like, you gotta think about,
And they're
you
like-
can't just do one type of person and be like, okay, this is
I
what.
know,
No, it's
but
all the way around, but the thing about it is that, all I'm saying
I
is
got
that,
I got a 16-year-old, so
What makes sense?
she's broke.
If that makes
So that's,
sense.
all 16-year-olds are broke.
Maybe it can be
so.
optional modes of transportation or.
Available.
Available modes, yeah, optional, like something about.
Well, that actually includes public transportation
Well,
too. It's not just biking and walking, so you want,
So what is the timeline or process for a completed vision statement? What's the ideal time?
I mean, it would be great to.
5 minutes.
Yeah, it'd be great to just get through this and not dwell on it too much, to be honest,
Right.
it's not really that big of a deal.
That's what I'm, because
But,
we could,
But if
go
we
around
wanna,
in circles
if we
on this.
wanna get stuck on it for a while, we can.
No, we did,
But-
but the whole bottom part, we just get the top and.
So this is Region 7 at the top, so you can see it's, similar
it's
length.
similar.
Plan 2040 was, much shorter,
But if there's any, I mean, if there's any sentences where like, we think it's just not necessary or, you know.
I think if there, my thought process, if there are specific sentences or term phrases that we want to remove, that's fine. But to say, you know, let's just shorten it for the sake of shortening it, that's different. And you want to see a smaller statement.
No,
But our-
not to
but
just
our
shorten it, just
community
to
is-
shorten it, I mean, more precise, like, if you say, like, instead of, okay, so. I'm just trying to sit there and read.
But the question is, do you want it more precise or do you want it more open-ended?
I think it needs to be open. And my thought is that it needs to be open-ended
Yeah,
because
cause you don't.
Region
you
3
know,
is so diverse in in the population that it serves. Like a statement like keep it rural would never work in our region.
They would
because-
definitely not.
Right, and so because you have so many wide-ranging constituents, you almost need room to let the voices speak, and I think that this was intended to give
Everybody say
space for
something.
each voice.
Right. I can see that, I mean, I can definitely.
I mean,
see
I
it.
don't think we're paying per word and there was no.
No, we don't care about that word at all.
And nobody ever said you have exceeded the number of characters you're allowed. So, I mean, it's not gonna take up a lot of room in the book. I don't see, it's easy to read. It's not like real esoteric or anything.
No,
so.
I like it, and I think it paints the region as being like a diverse place to live, and I don't know, it makes me wanna live there.
I think integral just means integrated so people can use it because the word option is there,
Mhm.
you know.
Maybe
it's a green
available, I mean, yeah, they're all
option.
synonyms.
It's not saying get all the cars off the road,
Mhm.
and nobody can drive their car. It's
Didn't
just
say
saying, we will have something that we
Give
really
you
don't
options,
have now.
yeah,
Feasible.
Feasible.
yeah, that's another, yeah, definitely.
I like it, I think it looks good, thank you guys for doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, wait for that.
how long did it take you to come up with?
An hour, well,
It took
first
you
we
much
had to
longer than it took
drive.
us. 'cause we drafted
and then
it.
we talked for an hour and back and forth.
Well, should we get a motion and approve it tonight, or does it still need?
Doesn't need,
I mean, the one thing that you guys said about the transportation, right?
You say, how's everybody else feel about it, though?
It's like
Yeah.
affordable public transportation and safe biking and walking paths are integral modes of transportation operating options.
Yeah, what
I
does
think you said
integral mean to
integral, we're
you?
gonna say optional modes, so there's.
Yeah.
Well, the word optional, didn't someone say it was already? in
Well, the
there?
word.
Yeah, it is,
Yeah, so maybe not optional.
So it's the same thing, it's like basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
I just think it's all.
How about, or
But this is our vision, this is.
I think available.
I know, listen,
Available.
it is, you're right, and everybody got to understand it.
Kind of like, yeah, painting a picture, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, that's what it is, that's what it is.
There's everything we've asked for, green spaces, commercial businesses,
Yeah, it's
diversity.
Yeah. It says everything, it does say everything.
Is the one sentence about plans for development are transparent to the public? Isn't that like part of all 2040 anyway? Is that redundant? Or is it important that one sentence to be there? I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm just, people talk about if you shorten anything, I don't know how important that is to the group.
Well, a lot
To
of
me, I
that's
know
what-
it's
yeah.
transparent.
almost everything in there is in Plan 2040. I mean, the larger Plan 40, we're trying to align with it.
Mhm.
I think it's maybe, it's a statement to say this is important to us.
No, that's
I
fine.
like that, and that kind of stuff, definitely.
Make a motion to accept it. You know,
Aye.
Second.
Do we have a
Second.
All
Did we
right.
change our rule?
I know, I think-
Wait a minute.
One
I think
second.
the motion to change
Right.
one word.
The one word.
One word. What was the one word?
And then bounce it around.
Yes, I propose that we adopt changing the word integral to
Available.
available.
Yeah, that's a good word, yeah, good. Same meaning.
Yep, so that's a
Propose-
motion.
Any second?
Okay,
Second. Yeah, we'll second.
third, fourth, and fifth.
All those.
In favor?
In favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Want to be the difficult one. You're not gonna
Motion
work.
carries.
It's not gonna work.
All
And
right.
just remember that we are being recorded for the whole public. Just reminder for everybody, keep in mind. I know Region 4 has had a lot of backlash on how they're residents are taking some of the things that came out of the SAC, and they're probably going back and looking at all those videos.
Wow.
So
That's cool.
I think we're pretty decent here. We definitely.
So like in 20 years, my kids can like look back at this and say.
You
"Yes,
never
your dad
know,
was a
you never
jerk."
know.
If it's all right to move on real quick, we do have a few housekeeping things that we didn't do at the beginning.
Is that
we would-
adopted?
Yeah, we're gonna move to accept it, because we. that
Oh,
was
did
about
we?
to-
Yeah.
Wild there for a minute, so.
Didn't know it was ready.
So, do we have a motion to accept it?
Yeah.
Motion to accept it.
All right, it's been moved. In a second.
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 All right, it's been moved and properly seconded, to accept the vision statement.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
All opposed?
Aye.
One
Nay.
opposed. Well, all right.
We just want to be a different one. It's okay.
I want to thank you guys for writing that. 'cause
Yeah.
that's really-
Yeah, that was, it was really good.
The wordsmithing.
Great job.
Well, I was gonna send it right back to you, make it shorter if you want to. It was
I'm
really
not
good.
creative, so it's good.
Our in-house English teacher took care of it.
We do have at least one member of the public here with us, and also, I think online we have one or two folks. So do you want to call for public comments, Jason?
Yes, do we have any public comments? 2 minutes each.
I'll just introduce myself. My name's Steve Horn. I'm with the Elm Street Development. I'm here just as an interested observer. Our company's had a number of projects in Region 3 and have a number ongoing, so this is sort of what I do for fun. And we also have a land use change application in the queue that you guys will eventually talk about, so I wanted to be on hand in the event there are any questions or.
So where are your developments?
Primarily right now on Marlin Boulevard. That's what I
Okay.
work on for the most part.
Oh, that's all the houses. Oh, right.
And do any of our online folks have their hand raised?
Doesn't look like,
That's Philip.
Philip raised your hand. You're able to speak if you want,
Okay, well, I'll say I'm not going to be, I agree with the other gentleman that said I'm not opposed to it, but I think it needs some refining. The vision statement. It is a little lengthy.
Okay,
Okay.
any other?
that looks like, we only have one other Zoom participant and they're not raising their hand, so
All right,
if there's no other things to say.
then we can move forward past the public comment section then.
Okay. Wanted to go into some announcements and next steps, just quickly, and then, need to get into a little more in depth, and, we do have a public input, drop-in session focused on transportation. That's tentatively, are we still saying tentative? I think we're confirmed for April the 2nd. I'm not sure that we.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're confirmed.
Yeah, I don't know that we know where that is. I think it's gonna be in the library again, correct?
You can continue, I'll look.
Okay, our next SAC meeting is April 9th, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that, because that's when, the rubber's really gonna hit the road with you guys. We've taken in, 40 some odd comprehensive zoning applications. We have been analyzing those in the background. We've also been doing a comprehensive look at all of the zoning on all the properties in the region. We're gonna come to you all, starting next month and start to go through some of that. And we need the committee to weigh in on all the potential changes that OPZ is recommending, and let us know if you agree, disagree. That's part of your advisory role, and we'll need to make sure that that's recorded. So there's a lot to get through with all of that.
You mean a committee prior to the meeting? You said we need a committee.
No, we need you all, the committee, to be weighing in on all of these potential changes and let us know whether you agree or disagree. All of that's gotta be recorded and shared with the planning advisory board and then the council, so it'll go through the process. I do wanna propose, because of the volume of stuff that we need to get through, I'd like to propose adding a third meeting to discuss comprehensive zoning with you all. And I've got, I think on the next slide, I've got a potential date. My guess is that evening meetings would be preferred, and I'd like to throw out and see, would you all be able and willing to participate in an additional meeting, either April 23rd or April the 30th? I spoke to Jason and Alyssa about this as well. We could potentially do a Saturday workshop. I've heard that, I haven't done those, but with other regions have done that, and said that they like the morning, format, but I know that that's tougher for people sometimes. So would you all be willing to add an additional meeting? And if so, evening or what?
Evening, 23rd or 30th works for me.
Yeah,
How about the 30th?
The 30th,
either one, fine for me.
I mean, I could do the 23rd, but.
Okay. Why don't we focus on the evening meeting? What if I send out a doodle poll? We do have a few folks who aren't here tonight, so we'll confirm it then, but I'll include those two dates, for evening. Not gonna do Saturday. I think that's a big no.
Unless it's raining.
Right.
Then everybody will come in, like, they're right here.
Yeah, a lot of things to do.
And
Is 40 more or less than what you typically see? Did you say
gosh, it was more than what we saw for Region 7 by a lot, but I didn't expect a lot in Region 7.
And there's also a
Areas
bigger
is a lot
area,
bigger.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's more population.
But like
I think
region
it was
4
less
was
than
a lot
Region 4.
more, and they were geographically larger too.
Yeah. We'll go through those together, but I think at least having that on the calendar will hopefully give us time to do that. So 3 meetings, finalize all of that on May 4th. We'll plow through that, and then we'll put draft zoning maps out for public input. That's a part of the process in the late June, July timeframe. I would like to have a meeting that I don't think we've had on your schedule yet, but a mid-July meeting to put together a draft plan with all of these strategies that we've been talking about and have you all review that. So could we schedule something for mid-July to do that? And I can kind of add that to a doodle poll as well, for you all, but would you all be amenable to that? Because it would be important to have your input on the actual plan itself as well. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna give you dates.
Yeah,
I'm
not
not gonna see it.
Yeah, I don't have dates yet for mid-July, so let me put some out, and again, that'll be a doodle poll, and we'll get that out to you. In terms of other, I think we're almost done. I was gonna bring up to you, we have 2 members who have left the committee at this point. One member had to resign, and one has not shown up, even to the kickoff at all. So based on the procedures that you all had agreed to and are, following, that person would then be removed from the committee. And I think at this point, talking to Alyssa and Jason, we probably want to continue with this committee just a bit smaller. We're fine in terms of numbers. We have to have between 9 and 15, so we would be a group of 13, and we have a lower quorum, which is a little bit easier to meet going forward. That is it. Is there anything else that anybody else has?
No.
Thanks for coming.
Wait, we did not approve the meeting notes from the last meeting.
Oh, okay.
We left that for the end.
So it was part of the email that was sent out. So we have a motion to approve the meeting notes from last meeting.
I didn't write them.
We can table that too.
So moved.
It's been moved. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, it's been moved and properly seconded. All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion passes. All right, well, thank you all for taking time on your Tuesday. Always fun.
All right, everything.
Is there any pre-work we need to do for the comp zoning?
Take a look at that background paper that I sent out, or I think I sent it to Jason to send out.
Yeah.
That's gonna be really key, going into the next discussion.
And that was in the last update that we sent out, right? For this meeting. Yes, it should be a link in that.
If you click
This-
on the
the land
link,
use
you don't
development
go anywhere,
redevelopment,
but
this
if you
one?
go to the Google.
Yes.
site,
Yes.
All right.
I cannot
Thank you.
wait.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
guys.
Jason.
I'll begin.